I want to welcome everybody to the DCMA manufacturing event today. I am the president of Label Solutions, a privately owned manufacturer of labels here in Garland. And as the chair of DCMA, I'm pleased that everyone could join us today. And we look forward to a great program presented by our peers in Garland. I want to take the opportunity to thank Rick Guerrero, Paul Mayer, and Christina Lawson with the DCMA for putting this together. And the DCMA has been part of the manufacturing community for over 16 years. And we're here to assist the economic growth of our community through special programs, committees, resources, connections, and in partnership with the City of Garland. We have 3 concurrent breakout sessions today with topics on current industry challenges that affect the manufacturing community. You have the option to attend one session, but keep in mind, all sessions will be recorded and shared after the program. Each presenter will have 40 minutes and attendees can attend their most desired presentation. In breakout room 1, we're gonna have employee safety in an ever-changing world with Stephen Fischer and Sara Thomson presenting with OCCUMED Plus Incorporated. That session is sponsored by Label Solutions. In breakout room 2, we have what's new for 2022, what employers need to know and how to plan with Monica Narvaez with MKim Legal. This breakout session is sponsored by Carr, Riggs, and Ingram. And then in breakout room 3, we have Garland Now and the Future, Garland Economic Development with Ayako Schuster, with the City of Garland Director of Economic Development. And that breakout room is sponsored by Veritex Bank. I'd like to thank our title sponsor, Texas Security Bank, and the supporting sponsors, Carr, Riggs, and Ingram, Veritex Community Bank, and Label Solutions for their support in making this session possible. On behalf of our sponsors, we have gift bags available to attendees as well. And Rick will be in contact with you regarding your preferred method of delivery. And you can add to your swag that you have on your, for all the different swag that we were sharing earlier. If you need assistance moving to a breakout room, please raise your hand and indicate which breakout room you want to go to, and someone will assist you. And also, please stay after the end of the presentations to learn more about what the DCMA has planned for 2022, as we have news about programs and initiatives for our community. Right now, I'd like to call on Sean Cass for our sponsor spotlight with Texas Security Bank. Sean?
Hi, I'm Sean Cass, Executive Vice President and one of the founders of Texas Security Bank. We are very proud to be your title sponsor today. Texas Security Bank opened its doors in 2008 with a vision of serving entrepreneurs and owner-managed businesses, what we like to call the champions of free enterprise. In 2011, we brought that vision to Garland, Texas. In addition to providing commercial banking services, we also provide ongoing training for our bankers so that they become a value-added resource to you, the business owner and operator. I'm exceptionally proud of our continuing education programs. Our business speaker series, along with our TSB Academy, cover a wide range of business topics, giving business owners and operators the tools needed to succeed and grow. The Texas Security Bank story resonates with business owners and operators. Why? Because we enjoyed the same free enterprise journey that they did. We put capital at risk, we worked hard, made sacrifices, and eventually we enjoyed a measure of success. Thanks again for allowing us to be your sponsor today, and enjoy your conference.
Thanks, Chris. Good morning, everyone. It's exciting to be here. We're excited to be the title sponsor today for the event. I was really shocked when they told me I could have 45 minutes to talk. I'm only kidding. It is a great lineup today. I was super excited to see the agenda. There's some really great relevant topics today. I do want to take a minute. I know many of you, but some I don't. I want to take a moment and tell you about Texas Security Bank. We are locally owned. community bank we founded in 2008. A group of bankers and business people came together to form a community bank that focused solely on owner-managed businesses. Our mission statement is to elevate the champions of free enterprise, and everyone on this call is a champion of free enterprise. You're a business owner or operator, and so our entire bank was built to serve you in not just financial services. We offer obviously all of those financial services, from operating accounts to commercial loans, lines of credit, robust treasury management services. But one of the things I'm most proud of, and I'll kind of end with this, is our business education. Since 2009, we have been providing quality business content to business owners and operators. We do that through our business speaker series. Those are hosted monthly. We partnered with the Chamber 2 years ago to co-sponsor the Bold Speaker Series. And then we also have a TSB Academy, which is a 12-month program where we take business owners and key players through a curriculum of material that touches on all the business acumens. And so we're super proud to be able to provide that much needed resource, similar to what you guys are going to digest today. So I just wanted to say thank you for allowing us to be the sponsor. I hope you guys have a great conference, and I will yield the rest of my time back to you, Chris.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate the sponsorship for the event. And at this time, I'm going to ask everyone to move into select the breakout room they want to be, the presentation they want to attend. And again, Alexander can help you with that if needed. And yeah, I guess with that, let's get started.
All right, all breakout rooms are open. Please hover down below on the bottom of your screen. There will be a room button there called breakout rooms, and you should be able to see 3 breakout rooms and select your option. If you don't, let me know and hold up a finger, and I will be moving you.
This session is sponsored by Label Solutions and Chris Merlick. And so let's let Chris talk about Label Solutions. Dear friend, really active classmate, leadership, Garland, the best class, and on our board, and just a great community guy. So Chris, talk about Label Solutions, and then we'll introduce Stephen and Sara.
Basically, just wanted to let you know, first of all, I want to thank OCCUMED for sponsoring this breakout session. And I know that employee safety is a topic that's important to all of us in the manufacturing community. We'll get to Stephen's presentation in just a minute, but first I want to tell you a little bit about Label Solutions. I started the company in 2007, and we have seen steady growth since inception. And we serve a variety of markets that I want to share with you. Our largest market that we serve is food and beverage. We manufacture labels for that are applied to meat products, candies, baked goods, condiments, spices, ice cream, cookies, beef jerky, and another bunch of other type food products. On the beverage side, we do coffee and tea labels, beer and wine labels. We have a kombucha label that we do for a company called Holy Kombucha here in Dallas. And then bottled water is another one of our beverage industry partners we have. We do industrial labels. We do, on the industrial side, we do labels that go on floor cleaners and waxes, automotive products, hand sanitizer, paints, dyes, and coatings. We do personal care labels, shampoos, conditioners, other hair care products, cosmetics, lotions, perfumes, and deodorants, pet care labels, shampoos, pet health products, dog and cat treats, that type of thing. And water treatment products for fish and reptile care. On the household and garden side, we do lawn care labels, hand soap and dish soap, and other disinfectants and cleaners that you use in your house. And then we also do health and fitness labels, which are nutritional supplements, vitamins, and protein powders, and so forth. And basically all these markets that we serve are consumer packaged goods. And so we have customers all over the United States, and we really focus our sales and marketing outreach on Texas, and specifically North Texas. And some of the manufacturers in Garland that we serve and produce labels for are Carol Clean, Lakewood Brewing, Hatco, Lucky Layla Farms, Rain Fresh Water, Corrosion Technologies, and Vinh Hoang, a Vietnamese meat manufacturer here in Garland. Our mission at Label Solutions is that we strive for excellence in all we do to provide premium, customized label solutions for our customers and their brands. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Stephen Fischer. And thank you for allowing me to present to you guys today.
Chris, if you'll let me do 2 seconds of introductions of Stephen. I mean,
Sure.
as I said before, he's a friend that's been in the business for a long time, taking care of people's occupational medicine needs and dealing with most of the folks on this call are clients of Stephen and work with Sara at OCCUMED. They're all the kind of things, occupational medicine, pre-employment screening, everything you'd expect. But the real differentiation that they do is how they do it and the care that they take with their customers and clients. Keeping people safe is their mantra. So we're excited to have Stephen and Sara talk about what's going on with employee safety and all the kind of craziness that's going on. So Stephen, I'm going to turn to you, and then you and Sara can do a tag team about how we keep our folks safe. So.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Paul. And again, we love this community so much, and the way that everybody comes together and works, and everybody brings their own special talents to this community, and it makes it such an amazing area to do business in. And so we like to just be a part of that, and we appreciate the kind comments. And you've always said that. And I got to mention, you've done something with your filter and your background that is just neat. You're going to have to show me how to do that. You have the whole background out of focus, so we only focus on your face, Paul. It's really good.
Not sure how that happened, but
I mean, it really is. It's a sharp look. So you're going to have to teach us that. But again, this community is just, it's an amazing community to be a part of. The majority of that reason is probably the chamber and the way you guys bring this community together. You know, we're in a lot of different chambers, and there is nothing quite, except for Allen maybe, but there is nothing quite like the way that Garland goes about its business and the leadership here. And so we're thrilled to be a part of this, and we're always willing to come out and speak and kind of talk about at least what we know about. And one of the biggest focuses, obviously, as everybody is aware, the last year with employee safety is how the pandemic is affecting this. What's going on with COVID? How is it affecting people? What can we do to help try to prevent that a little bit? And really what we're looking at coming up with these mandates. I think that that's a big focus that manufacturers are going to have to really take a look at. And so we've kind of, instead of going over basic safety, you know, I know there's a lot of good safety directors out there that they know what they're doing, but this pandemic adds a new element to that. And so we're going to speak on that today. Sara Thomson, since the minute the pandemic started, has dedicated her life to learning, understanding, and how this is going to impact our communities with pandemic regarding testing, vaccinations, everything. And so I asked her to come on because frankly, she is the brains behind our reaction and how we've been going about handling this pandemic. Also, I am just now out of quarantine the last 2 days because my family had been hit with COVID. And I'll tell you, it is not an easy experience. That was a rough time. And so I'm still kind of coming back. If you hear me coughing, I'll hit mute, but I am out of quarantine and ready to go. So Sara Thomson, very smart when it comes to this specific topic, all topics, obviously, but this specific topic, this is what she's been dedicated to. So Sara, if you're able to pull up the PowerPoint, just so we can have some basic things to go over, and then we'll talk on that.
Yep.
Paul, are we going to need, or Rick, are we going to need Alexander to allow us to share? Okay, here we go.
We got it.
Okay, So
All
another
right, yeah.
keep in mind as we go through this, and nobody likes to speak for 30 to 40 minutes, and nobody wants to hear just somebody talk for 40 minutes. So speak up. Let's let this be a little bit engaging. And if you have a question or thought, or even to add something to it, then please speak up. Don't be afraid to speak up during this.
Okay, I'll jump in. Again, my name is Sara Thomson. I work with OCCUMED, and my primary focus since COVID came out, last year, was to make sure we stayed on top of all the current news, updates, workforce impact, safety, and mitigation processes for COVID-19. So we're going to go through best practices of keeping your employees and workforce safe. And like Stephen said, please jump in. I'm not a teacher, so I don't expect you to wait to the end of class to ask questions. If you think of something, just stop me and we'll go from there. So things we're going to cover today are signs and symptoms of COVID-19, the best practices for preventing spread through your workforce, the overall COVID-19 impact on your workforce, facts about testing, what type of testing to do, when to do it, what to do once infected, and then the new vaccine mandates and the information that goes along with it. Just last night, they made some new updates to that. So we'll make sure you guys have all the current regulations that have to do with this new mandate. So of course, we all know COVID-19 is a worldwide pandemic. 42.3 million people worldwide have been diagnosed with COVID-19. 405,000 of those were diagnosed in Dallas alone, and 5,365 Dallas residents have lost their life to this illness. So simply looking at those numbers, you can imagine how losing 5,000 Dallas residents would impact your workforce. Those are people that work here and live here and have families here. So it impacts everybody around them. Signs and symptoms of COVID-19. At this point in time, we all know there are certain things to look for. We know the fever, we know the cough. One of everybody's least favorite symptoms is the loss of taste or smell. But in reality, with the ever-changing strains of the virus, we have new symptoms coming and going. So fever or chills, the cough that everybody knows about, shortness of breath and difficulty breathing, and fatigue. And I want to focus on fatigue for a minute. I always like to make a clarification and a distinction between fatigue and being tired. We all know someone who has a brand new baby at home and they're not sleeping well. They are tired because that baby's not sleeping. Fatigue is literally when you cannot get up, you can't function. You're sitting at a table and you're taking a couple bites of your meal, and all of a sudden you have to lay down. You have to stop eating because just the thought of chewing becomes exhausting. Fatigue is a noticeable difference from being tired, and that's what we're looking for. Muscle or body aches, headache, as we talked about, the new loss of taste or smell, and this can happen quickly. I like to share real world experience. And we have a vendor of ours who was at home cooking chicken soup for him and his wife, who both had COVID. They weren't feeling well. And the wife gave him a little ladleful and said, taste this and tell me what it needs. And he said, it needs some salt, some pepper. She added the salt and pepper, gave him another ladleful, and he couldn't taste anymore. So this is not a gradual incident. It literally can go from 1 second to the next. You have no flavor, taste, smell, anything. Sore throat, and of course that can be confused with allergies, but in combination with these other signs and symptoms, congestion or runny nose, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. So as a manager or supervisor, it is your responsibility to keep your workforce safe and productive. Paying attention to all these signs and symptoms could make the difference between an isolated case or rapid spread through your facility. So keep in mind that if you as a manager, you see Bob on the floor every day, and he's typically pretty upbeat, happy, and energetic. And he comes in one day and he's coughing and looks just run down. You know something's off. And in the world of COVID, there is no overreaction. you know this man is not his normal self. It pays to get him off the floor, get him to a clinic, let's get him tested and away from everybody else. That's how you prevent spread. And that's your primary goal as an employer. So how do we prevent spread? The things listed on this slide are the best practices we have for preventing spread. As many of you remember, at the beginning of this pandemic, we set up tables and had screeners at the start of every shift doing temperature screens on everybody as they walked in. What we were looking for was somebody that had a fever so we can stop them and assess the situation before they walk onto your floors and basically create a spread within your environment. The reason this has stopped is a number of things. One, a lot of you have gone automated, where we have the little scanners when you walk in the door. And then the other issue is that we are noticing not everybody had a fever when they had COVID. I think Stephen could probably speak to this, but his first symptom was not a fever. It was just feeling run down and sluggish. We can't catch that when we're taking temperatures. So that first step has gone by the wayside in more of a reactive result as opposed to a proactive result. We still do recommend ensuring there's plenty of hand soap and hand sanitizer available for team members to assess throughout their shift. This doesn't mean just have it at the front door, have it in the restrooms, have it in work areas, have enough stations around that people aren't waiting in line for their sanitizer. It's quick access, they can get it and then go about their day. Your employees need to be made aware of company policy regarding the mask and PPE use and adhere to those guidelines. Again, we will visit this shortly, but with the new mandate coming out, these are going to change, and making sure your employees know the newest updates is going to benefit you and your employee body. Employers should arrange for social distancing wherever possible. When the pandemic started, this was a given. We created 6 feet of space for everybody in the workforce as best we could. Now that the mandates are relaxing, you notice more people in closer quarters. Of course, what we recommend is wherever possible, still maintain some distance between employees. Team members should report any onset of illness immediately as an attempt to stop spread before it begins. We all know that employees want to work, they need the money. They don't want to come to anybody and say, I have a cold, I need to go home. And the problem with that is where they used to just have a cold, a lot of times now it's early onset COVID. And by the time they feel sick and then into the shift, when they finally say something, they could have infected 3 to 5 individuals. So it's making sure people understand they can come to their employer. They don't need to feel bad. They can absolutely come to their manager, their supervisor and say, I don't feel well. What do you recommend? How does COVID-19 impact your workforce? So we all know that with COVID-19 and social distancing, we have reduced staffing, which then results in less production. Obviously, companies don't want less production, that equals less money, which then affects your hours. So we reduce hours for some workers. And then because of that, people are leaving the workforce. It became to the point where people went home and decided to collect these unemployment benefits because it was guaranteed money and not necessarily what they were going to get by continuing to work. On the flip side of that now, our employers are struggling to fill positions. And I'm sure some of you can relate to this. We have one employer in Grand Prairie who has 400 open positions that they are struggling to fill. And there are a number of things keeping them from doing that. Some people are still scared to go to work. They're afraid they're going to get COVID. Some people are looking for the best paying job. Some people are looking for the best hours. So as an employer, you're having to fight an uphill battle to get back to the pre-pandemic staffing levels. With fewer employees, trying to keep up with the same production level often leads to mistakes and injuries. So now not only do you have fewer employees, you're seeing higher costs on the work comp side because you're having more mistakes and injuries occur, whether it's fewer trained employees or just fewer employees trying to keep up with the faster pace of work. And then, of course, the added cost of PPE and safety measures. On a workforce that's already strained, you're coming out of pocket to cover the cost of these items that your employees are having to use on a daily basis. So what do we do? How do we test? One of the biggest issues we see is that people run to test at the moment they are exposed. This doesn't do your employees or your job any favors. And we're going to go over what testing and when we recommend it. But there are 4 basic types of tests. We have the COVID rapid antibody test, the COVID rapid antigen testing, the COVID rapid PCR test, and your lab-based PCR test. And as a personal plug, you guys know that you could always come to OCCUMED for any of those tests and we can take care of you. All right, types of testing. Knowing what type of test to get and when to get it could help reduce spread of infection. So before I start talking about the testing types, I know I've had conversations with quite a few of you where you call me and say, Sarah, I was exposed today. Should I go get tested? And I had to remind you that no, there is no point to being tested immediately. So if this was an in-person meeting and Chris and I were sitting next to each other and sorry, Chris, you test positive for COVID and I find out an hour from now, initial knee-jerk reaction is I have to go get tested. I need to make sure I'm safe, my family's safe, all that. The issue becomes if I run and get tested now, there was not enough time for me to get viral load. And as we look at the testing, you'll understand that the viral load means significant enough viral load to be picked up on a test. So what do we recommend? We recommend waiting 3 to 5 days from your exposure or onset of symptoms. So if Chris tested positive today and in 2 days I start coughing and have a fever, absolutely, let's get tested. If Chris tests positive today and in 5 days I feel fine, there's a good chance that I'm not going to get infected and I can wait. So now let's talk about the types of tests and when we
Hey, Sarah,
recommend.
you got a second? I got a question real quick.
Absolutely.
Prior to being tested, would I be able to pass COVID to other people? Would it be a good idea to kind of quarantine myself a little bit prior to that 3-day window or 3 to 5 day window?
Absolutely. So if you and I are sitting next to each other at an event, and remember that a true exposure is at least 15 minutes of constant exposure to each other. So certainly if we're sitting next to each other, even the people around us. So Chris, you and I are next to each other. Rick and Steven
Sarah.
are behind us. Yes.
It's kind of giving a lot of static reverb back. Is anybody else hearing that?
I'm hearing it.
Okay, it sounds like it's maybe cleared up a little bit. Will you try again,
Is
Sarah?
it better? Is it better? Haven't moved. Let me move some stuff here. Okay, is this better?
It's not, unfortunately.
Okay, hold on. Let me mute and come back on and see if that helps. Okay, does that help at all?
No, it doesn't sound that great, but I guess just go ahead and continue.
Sorry. Did it just start?
Yeah, I mean, it just started like a second ago, so I'm not sure why that's happening.
Yeah, it was really clear and
Yeah, I mean, everything
great,
sounded
but then
great, and
after
then all of
I
a
asked
sudden
that
it's doing
question,
static.
Okay. I can move to another room and hardwire my computer if you want to try that.
Why don't you just go ahead and pull up the types of testing?
Okay, perfect. Okay. Can you guys hear me or do we need Steven to read over this?
No,
We
Sarah, can you try something? So let's mute your mic and call in. And we'll hear you through the phone.
Also, make sure your cell phone's not close to that.
Yeah, maybe move your cell phone away from it. Just something just started all of a sudden started making it static.
Yes.
Okay, unmute. Sarah, unmute.
There we go.
I am. My computer is still. Is this better?
No.
Okay, let me call in then.
Okay.
And I'll call and yell at our IT department.
While we have a pause in the action, I'm curious, Stephen, maybe you can answer this. I know a COVID pill has recently been approved in England. You guys know anything about that? What can you share on that subject?
Well, Sara would be the one that has been involved in those conversations. Sara does a conference call with all experts about twice a week and has just been really getting a lot of the updates. And that is a newer one. And hopefully Sara can speak on that here in a second, but that's a great question. Sorry, guys.
Sorry, guys, it won't accept the meeting code either.
I think just go ahead. I mean, it's a little fuzzy. But
Okay.
It's a little fuzzy. Let's just go ahead and do it. Maybe it'll start to clear up.
Okay.
Take your cell phone away from that and maybe adjust the computer a little bit. Is anything plugged into it?
No, and I'm sitting like in the middle of a room. I'm not near anything.
Okay, well, we'll just have to, we'll make do.
Sorry, guys, we'll make this work. Okay, so to talk to the pill that you brought up, Pfizer released a pill that is awaiting FDA certification. That'll be taken like the flu medication that we currently take for the flu. So as soon as you have signs or symptoms of COVID, you'll be able to take this pill and it will shorten the span of the virus. It is not approved yet. Is hoping to be approved shortly, and then Moderna will be following shortly thereafter with their own pill. Okay. Did everybody hear that? Okay, perfect. Okay, so rapid antibody testing. So antibody testing can play an important role in identifying individuals who have been exposed to SARS-CoV-2 virus and may have developed an adaptive immune response. However, antibody tests should not be used at this time to determine immunity. So again, the reason we say that is because people are often like, I just tested, I've got the antibodies, I'm fine. That is not the case. What it means is at some point in the recent past, you had COVID, doesn't necessarily mean you can't spread it or catch a new strain. So though that the antibody testing is available, it is not one we recommend the most. Rapid COVID antigen testing, many of you have used this one. It's effective in detecting current COVID infection. So they look for pieces of proteins that make up the SARS-CoV-2 virus to determine if the person has active infection. This takes 15 minutes. This test is highly recommended for people who already have symptoms. You get more false negatives than you do false positives on these tests. So that being said, go back to me and Chris, we're at this function. He's tested positive and I go test. If my test comes back negative, it does not necessarily mean I don't have COVID. What we recommend is if you do a rapid COVID antigen test and it's negative, follow up with a PCR 24 hours later. Okay. Rapid PCRs are a newer test that have been developed to do the same molecular testing as the lab-based PCR, but with results in 15 minutes. These are the gold standard as far as rapid tests go. They're going to test for active infection and give you results in 15 minutes. And of course, the absolute gold standard is the lab-based PCR. The issue with the lab-based PCR, especially for employers who are trying to keep people working, is that the results typically take 2 to 5 days to get back to you. Now in Dallas, if you guys remember, about 5 months ago, we had a sudden surge in testing and tests were taking upwards of 5 days. The issue with a 5-day turnaround time is that by the time you get the results, the person is done with quarantine. So with all of these tests, we recommend that once someone tests, they are in isolation because you assume all tests are negative. Or I'm sorry, you assume all tests are positive. Once they get a negative result, they can go back to work, but nobody else got sick. If it's a positive test, again, by isolating until you get the results, you've avoided a spread in the workforce. So, what do you do after infection? These are the most recent CDC recommendations for if you test positive. Once you test positive, you stay home for 10 days after your last point of contact. Not the day that you get your test results back, but from your last contact. Or they are now saying after 7 days from that contact, if you test negative, you can go back to work. After 7 days, you typically are not contagious anymore. So even if you test positive, you will not spread the virus. You will watch your fever, cough, shortness of breath, or other symptoms of COVID-19. So what we typically say is if you are fever-free for 24 hours without the aid of medication, and it's been at least 7 days, you are good to go. And of course, if possible, stay away from people you live with, especially people who are at higher risk for getting very sick from COVID-19. So Stephen and I think we both agree that this is the most important aspect of today's talk. Stephen, if my speaker is still scratchy, do you want to go over this?
Yeah, why don't you take your computer and go back to the office and actually plug in instead of trying to go through Wi-Fi, if you'll do that. You know, I'll tell you, this is absolutely the biggest topic right now facing all manufacturing companies is this mandate. You know, most of our clients have over 100 employees, and this is something that we've been taking calls on nonstop for the last couple, I don't know, maybe 3 to 5 weeks or so. And there's a lot of employers that are just flat out saying, well, Texas says we don't have to do this, right? That we're just not going to adhere to this, but this really has nothing to do with state. This is going to be an OSHA mandate. It's going to be federal. And this is something that people are going to have to get on board with making sure that their people are vaccinated, or they're going to have to do weekly testing every week on anybody that's unvaccinated. Now you can imagine we have clients, in fact, we're doing this with a client right now that has 2,000 employees, and about 1,400 of them aren't vaccinated. And now they're going to have to weekly test 1,400 people. And here, try again, Sarah.
Can you hear me better in here?
Oh, it is so much better.
Okay.
I actually had muted you earlier because it sounded
Thanks.
terrible. And I think we lost everybody to go to Ayako because they can hear what she's saying.
Okay, well, do you want me to take over then?
Yeah, go ahead and take over. I was just kind of doing statistics about this COVID mandate because this really is going to be a crazy, crazy implementation.
Okay, so first and foremost, this mandate changed as late as last night. So as of last night, this is how the mandate stands. All employers with 100+ employees will have to ensure their workers are vaccinated or get tested weekly. So imagine with an employer with 2,000 employees, if they have a 30% vaccination rate, how many people they're going to have to figure out how to test weekly. This is not monthly, this is weekly, and you have to show proof that the test was completed. So if you're a federal worker, then not only do you have to prove vaccination now, the testing is not an option. So they changed it to say federal employees can do either or. They do not have a choice anymore. Federal employees have to be vaccinated. Then 17 million healthcare workers at Medicare and Medicaid participating hospitals and other healthcare settings will be mandated vaccinations. They have changed it. They're going to allow everybody until January 4th to provide medical or religious exemptions from this. All large entertainment venues will require proof of vaccination or testing. So I'm sure some of you have gone to some concerts, whether it was the Rolling Stones or Maroon 5 recently, and they've been leaving it up to the artist thus far. When the new mandate goes into effect January 4th, it's no longer up to the artist. It is across the board required. So Maroon 5 required vaccination cards or test results. Alanis Morissette said, just come see me. So that'll no longer be the option. All employers have to provide paid time off to get vaccinated, but do not have to pay for the testing. So that was a big part of the questions in the beginning, was who pays for all this testing? The employer is not mandated to do it. Some may choose to when they realize that one employee that is not vaccinated or tested is $14,000 worth of fines. And that's not a one-time fine. So I
that's
think we
per
can all
employee
agree.
per violation. Is that correct? So
Right.
if OSHA came
Per
in,
employee. Yep. So if OSHA walks in, let's just say they walk in on January 5th, day one of this. And let's be honest, OSHA moves at their own pace. And I think they all have their favorites. We all feel that way sometimes. So OSHA's going to walk into this company. Let's just say they have 200 employees. They have a 40% vaccination rate, and 60% of their team is not vaccinated or tested. That 60% of the employees is $14,000 each if they are not tested. And that doesn't mean that that's just today. If they feel like it, they can come back January 14th and do the same thing and fine you again $14,000. We live in Texas. Greg Abbott does what he wants and likes to say that he can get away with it, which is fine on some level, except this is a federally mandated OSHA guideline. So they do not care. And in fact, last night they came out and said, regardless of what your state is telling you, this supersedes all state rulings. So we know we're going to have a couple employers who say, I'm not doing it. Governor Abbott has told me I don't have to do it. And I can guarantee you OSHA's paying attention and they'll be the first ones to get the fines. So I think what we're going to see is people start by not doing it, and it's going to take one fine and people are going to start jumping on. Now, we have different employers who are going to manage those different ways. We have some employers who we are just going to set up on their facility, test people daily, report it to the health department, and keep track of who does it. We have other employers who have literally said, we don't want to make this easy on them. So we want them to have to come to your clinic, get tested in the morning, wait for their results, and come to work. And if they're late, they're documented as late. And it's because they don't want to make it comfortable for them. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out in the next couple months, up to a year, I assume. But we have until January 4th now to be compliant. And of course, any of you that have worked with Stephen or I know that we are absolutely happy to work with you on putting together a plan that works for your team. Whether you have 5 employees who need to test or 1,000 employees that need to be tested, we will absolutely work with you. So going to the next page, then we realize something that's going to be important is vaccination and bumping up those numbers. So as of right now, in Dallas County, 1,388,000 972 people are fully vaccinated. That only equals 53.7% of the population. So that means if we stay at this level of vaccination, we are going to be testing a lot of people weekly, or we will incur a lot of $14,000 fines, and nobody wants that coming out of their pockets. In Texas, 15.5 million people are fully vaccinated, which equals 53.4% of the population. And in the US, 192 million people are fully vaccinated, which is 58.4. So you can see that Dallas and Texas in general fall below the national average. And a lot of that just has to do with the fight over the mandates and people being forced to get vaccinated and not wanting to get vaccinated. So unfortunately for your employers, a lot of this is going to fall to you and making sure your employees are safe and vaccinated, or we face fines, unfortunately. So especially with my speaker being in and out, I'm sure there are some questions that we would love to answer for you. Anything you couldn't understand because I was sketchy back then, or just something additional.
Yeah, I think we chased everybody away. This is boring stuff, I guess. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the big takeaway from this are these mandates that are going to be coming through. That's going to affect every major employer in Dallas County. There's no question. And, you know, we have a lot of clients that feel like OSHA picks on them. And so they're really scrambling to put these programs in place. We've ordered a lot of these tests because they just aren't able to get their employees vaccinated. Like I was saying earlier, we have one client that's going to have to test around 1,400 people a week when this goes into effect. And just the logistics of that is almost going to be impossible. And then you start thinking about even the supply of it. So like, Chris, are you guys at that threshold where this is going to impact you?
I think we're probably 2/3 to 3/4 vaccinated at our facility.
Oh, that's great.
We did offer an incentive to our employees, and $100 once you get your second shot. And I'm curious, have you seen any other incentives in any other places, and what are other people doing to incentivize their employees to get vaccinated?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we even had to do incentives to even get, even in the medical field and owning these medical clinics throughout DFW. I would say what, Sarah, about 1/3 of even our own people weren't wanting to get vaccinated, even though we're dealing with this.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did incentives. We have a suite at the Rangers. They could have access to the suite. They could have access to baseball tickets. I think we did a $300 bonus for people that got vaccinated. And I feel like we got a pretty good jump out of that. Other clients, they are essentially, Sarah, and speak on it. What are some of what are they doing to?
So it depends on the size.
I'm Mary Lou from Dallas, that product.
Hey, Mary Lou.
Hey, how are you? Sorry for my husband in the picture crashing the meeting. I just didn't.
Well, it's a great picture.
But listen, we also provided incentives. Our population right now, our payroll population, we're over 70% fully vaccinated for both facilities. Our challenge is right now is the temp population. It's like, 1 out of 10 is vaccinated or maybe has the first dose. So that is our challenge. So we did two things. We did for anybody that was fully vaccinated, we provided an incentive of $120. We wanted to make sure that everybody got at least $100 on their paycheck. So we said, we're gonna do $120, and that helped. And then we have milestones. So if we reach a certain level, we will do a lottery, which we've done. We did the first lottery and we gave $1,000 to 2 people. And then,
oh, wow, that's great.
So then from that one, and then we played it on the production TV. I will go out every week and keep track. I had a color-coded, my staffing report was color-coded. So if I saw you this week and you say, well, I'm thinking about it, you'll be like beige, and I will follow up with you 2 weeks later. Hey, I remember you were thinking about it. Are you still thinking about it? And that's how I was able to push the needle a little bit. We reached the second milestone. And after the first lottery, we really had a huge jump. And that's how we got to where we got, because now we surprised them. They didn't know it was going to be 2 people. They only thought it was going to be one person. And when we did it, they were like, wait a minute. That following week, I had like 5 people bringing their cards so we can see them. And then we just did the second milestone lottery today for $1,500. So 2 people got $1,500.
Wow.
But we gave them 3 months. We started in August, and everybody had until Halloween to submit their cards. So we're not gonna meet the 3rd milestone, which will have taken us to 80%. But we were like 12 people short of that goal. And so it's been a challenge. I honestly hope that I'm not comfortable with this OSHA mandate. I'm not comfortable with forcing people to vaccinate, even though I believe in the vaccine. I think it's gonna create more problems than not. And I'm not ready to fire people because they're not vaccinated. And so that's really how I feel about it.
Well, those are all excellent points, Mary Lou. And I think that you've shown that employee engagement and being involved with them can help incentivize and encourage that. And obviously money motivates, right? Always. And so you're obviously doing a great job with that. And I think that I won't argue for or against these mandates, to be honest with you. It's we kind of are in the middle on that. There's a lot of pros and cons to it all. I think that what they're trying to do is not necessarily force the vaccination, but it does somewhat feel like a punishment. If you're not vaccinated, you're gonna have to be subjected to weekly testing to work. And that's gonna, cause a lot of logistical issues for employers trying to accommodate that.
Well,
And
COVID
so
has already changed our jobs, because a big portion for the last almost 2 years have been COVID this, COVID that, and now we have to keep track of paperwork weekly with vaccines. It just doesn't make sense to me, and I just don't know. I mean, we'll take it one day at a time. And
sure.
Hey, Stephen.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Did you see David's question about employers under 100? He had a question on the chat about.
Oh, is that on the chat? Let me.
Yeah.
It is. It reads,
Okay, sorry, there was a train coming behind me, so I muted, but as of right now, they are not anticipating employees or employers with under 100 employees being affected.
Yeah, so right now, this is only for employers that have 100 employees plus. Under 100, it's kind of like you're just not going to fall under those regulations right now. Now, if they'll change that in the future, who knows? But I think their focus here is to get large groups, large populations vaccinated, or have them, obviously doing the weekly testing. I don't know how aggressive they're going to be on this $14,000 fines per employee per violation. That seems a little over the top. I can't even imagine. I mean, we have clients that have 500 people that aren't vaccinated, and if they're not testing them, I mean, you can imagine how those fines add up.
But they don't have the manpower to enforce something like that. I mean, people are getting hurt and dying in the workplace, and they're gonna be tracking vaccination records. That's insane.
Yeah, well, exactly. Again, it's kind of like, yes, there's a lot of opinions on it. I always say this to our, to basically our whole team. When these rules come out that seem unfair, they don't make sense. I always say we can stand on the sideline and complain about the rules, or we can get in the game and we just have to abide by and play by the rules that are in front of us. And this is something that is going to come down, and it is going to happen. And so we got to start getting everybody prepared to be able to handle these new mandates that are going to be coming out. And so I think it's going to be even more of a discussion. And Paul, that's probably something we should discuss specifically, is getting everybody together to talk about these mandates and the best practice on really even going forward starting in January. Because wait till they come in and find Kraft Foods or any other employer millions of dollars because they're not following this. That's going to have a huge impact in this community.
I think
and so
you're exactly right, Stephen. Yeah, and we do have we have a significant number of employees. You know that better than I do, over 100 folks. And
Oh, I mean, it's a vast majority, frankly. I mean, there's a lot of big companies in Dallas County. And this is something that is going to happen. It is coming down the pipeline. And I really think it needs a lot more focus on how logistically we're going to do that. I think it's going to take the chamber helping coordinate and coming together as all the employers together to come up with a program or system to be able to do this.
I'm going to jump in for a minute and speak to that. I don't think everybody realizes that it's not just testing. When you test, you have to report.
It's the
So,
reporting of it.
It's the reporting of it. So if you have 500 employees you have to test them, get the results, and report them to the health department. So you're right in that sense, Mary Lou, that it is creating more work for an already stressed workforce. But again, and it's always a personal plug for us, but something Stephen and I strive to do is to be a partner for you guys. So we're here, we can help come up with methods and ways to make it easier on you as our employer partners. Again, day in and day out, I'm talking about COVID, talking about the mandates. So I'm constantly trying to come up with ways to make things easier for our employers. And Mary Lou, you know, well, I'm a phone call away, an email away, and we'll come up with something together to try and make this easier for you guys.
well, I took the action, Stephen, because we'll get all of our employers that are going to be affected. We'll have a focused discussion on this because it's, yeah, and there's so much chatter back and forth. Sarah, you're a great sounding board and a voice of reason because you're there seeing it on a real-time basis. And
Yep.
you know, it's and you know, those of you that know me, I tend to go to 40,000 feet and ask all the ridiculously silly questions about philosophy and why people don't do this. But as you say, Stephen, it's the reality, and you know, Mary Lou and everybody else, and it's personal choices. It comes down to personal choices and accepting personal consequences. You know, and this pandemic has caused more fractions and anger and angst than, of course, in my 72 years of being on the planet. So it's not easy, but thankfully we do have folks like OCCUMED and our health folks that are working on this. We've got about another 10 or so minutes. You know, you might want to engage on a philosophical conversation, or is that too?
I had another question. Now, you know, one of the things we talk about a lot in the manufacturing community is our supply chain issues that we've been having. And with these mandates, are you guys having any issues getting the test, or is there going to be shortage of vaccines, or what are your thoughts on that?
Great
Sure.
question.
Yes, so OCCUMED strives to be proactive as opposed to reactive. So when we heard that this mandate was coming down, we pre-purchased a large stock of tests. We have them ready, and what we're encouraging our employers to do is to pre-purchase from us at least a month's worth of testing. Part of the mandate, when it hits in January, is they've talked about increased production of the kits, but we know how that goes. It's going to be delayed. So if our employers pre-purchase a month's worth of tests from us, not only do they get a cost break, but they get the satisfaction of knowing when everyone else is struggling to get them, they've already got them set aside. They become their test. So if DAP orders 500 tests from us, those are their tests to use for people that are sick, for these mandates. Whenever they need them, they're there for them. So yes, I do anticipate a shortage of tests, but not for us. As far as vaccines,
Do those tests have an expiration date on them, or are they good for a while?
They have, so this is the way that the CDC and the FDA puts it to us. They have a 6 to 9 month expiration date, but can be used for up to a year. Okay. And the reason I believe they put it like that is if you've ever bought a gift card to a restaurant and it says that it's good for 9 months and that restaurant closes in 6 months, that's how they cover and protect themselves. So basically what they're saying is if in 6 months, this test expires because there's newer and better one available, it doesn't mean this one's not effective. It just means that there might be a new one with a higher sensitivity rate or a new strain. If you remember when Delta came out, some of the old ones, they said that they wouldn't pick up the Delta strain, and that's why they set those expiration dates so low.
Thank you. That's great information.
Quick question.
Now- Go ahead.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I was just gonna say for vaccines, because I know Chris asked about the vaccines as well. There's not gonna be a shortage of vaccines.
No.
We are sitting on
there's a
supply
cer-
after supply. Yeah. We are sitting on vaccines. Now, vaccines expire within 30 days, but if they are stored in the deep freeze, like we've talked about, they're good. So we will not run out of vaccine.
In fact, they're throwing away vaccines every month. Thousands and thousands of them. I think we had what, Sarah, 400 or 500 vaccines?
We threw out 180 doses that went unused.
Yeah. You know, and it was at a point where everybody says, okay, we need them, let's get them. And then it just kind of doesn't happen. I think General Dynamics was expecting 1,000 people
250.
or 250 to get vaccinated. And I think they had five. Something like that.
Yeah,
You know, so you know, you gotta be able to read it right too. And so, but you know, but now they're gonna be in that same boat. How are we gonna test them weekly, every week doing these tests? And so we really tried to streamline it and order those and be prepared for it. And to give you an idea, the average cost or charge for doing a COVID test is about $100. Well, we ordered in such a quantity that we now will charge $50, but that'll include all the implementation, you know, the actual nurse to do the shot or, you know, to do the test, the reporting, all the reporting, everything. We tried to make it as easy as possible and really do it as a pass-through cost to the employer, because we're just trying to do that as a value added to our clients.
And we'll be able to tell you which employees have not tested for that week. So if you send me a list of your employee list of people who have not been vaccinated, I'm tracking it every week. And then by Friday, if somebody hasn't been tested, I can call you and say, hey, Chris, Jim Smith has not tested this week. Do you have an updated vaccine card for him, or do we need to get him in? And that's just part of the management process for you.
And these are all PCR rapid tests that you guys are administering for the most part?
So for these, we are actually doing the antigen testing. The reason we're doing the antigen testing is because the PCR is for people who are sick. We know they have symptoms. The antigen test, the reality is these people aren't sick. They're just having to jump through a hoop to fulfill the mandate. So we are doing the antigen testing.
For the mandated testing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Got it.
Can you speak?
But if you send anybody over and you can choose which test you want them to do,
Right.
the PCR rapid, PCR send to lab, rapid antigen. You know, this is more for efficiency, getting people in. I mean, even this one that we're going to be doing for a company out in McKinney, you know, they're going to have anywhere between 750 to 1,000 people to test every week. And we're trying to put the logistics together. If you do the PCR, people are just going to be sitting and waiting.
Right.
And that antigen, you can get a result in 15 minutes.
You know, they all done via nose swab?
Yes.
Yes.
Because I'm
Now-
thinking that the people that have to do that weekly, that might be an incentive to get
That's going to be an
vaccinated,
incentive
you know?
in itself. The second time they're sitting in their car with a swab and they're not being able to get in for 15 minutes, I think that could be a big motivator to just say, you know what, it's not worth it. I'd like to just go back to normal.
And that
We
begs
were-
the question. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, so this goes back, we were testing for the NBA. When the NBA was going on, we had to test anybody that came in contact with the players weekly. So you can imagine by the end of the NBA season, people are just done. They don't want anything else up their nose. It's enough. So your employees now, who you say you have to do it or get the shot, I anticipate a lot of people are going to start getting vaccinated quickly or unfortunately leaving the workforce, which is not what we want to see.
Now, I will say that when we were testing the NBA and the Lakers were in town, we actually tried to exclude LeBron James, and it did not work. They let him play anyways.
Hey,
And I'm
Steve.
sorry, Rick, we've cut you off a couple times.
No, you guys are good. I wanted to ask, can you speak to the mix and match for booster shots?
Yes. So originally, when the vaccines came out, they said, do not mix vaccines. So if you got Pfizer, you get Pfizer for your booster. If you got Moderna, you get Moderna. What they are now learning is that regardless of which vaccine you got, you are getting a significant boost in antibodies by getting whatever booster you can. Mostly, as of note, is the Johnson & Johnson, since it's a 1-dose shot. If they get a Moderna or Pfizer as their booster, they're seeing a 76% increase in antibodies just by mixing them. So now they're saying, get a booster. Whatever you can get your hands on it, get a booster.
Are there any benefits? I've read something about, delaying the booster as long as possible and that type of thing is.
So they're saying that the perfect timeline is 6 to 8 months post final vaccination. And the reason they're saying that is because they started to notice the waning of antibodies right about that time. So again, we talked about not doing the antibody testing. That could be a time where that test comes in handy. So at 6 months, if you test and you're chock full of antibodies, maybe wait 2 months and get it at 8 months. And that way you just have a longer term of protection. Also, since it is flu shot season, everybody should note that they are safe to get together. So you can go today and get your COVID booster and your flu shot at the exact same time. Instead of for a while. Yeah, so for a while they said space it out 30 days, and now they're saying just get them together.
Yeah, I'm a cocktail. I've got the Moderna and the Pfizer, or Moderna for the first two, and then Pfizer for the booster, and then I got my flu shot on the same day. So
You're ready to go.
I feel good. Yeah, no problems.
Did you notice a difference between the Pfizer and Moderna and how you reacted? You have a reaction to it, obviously.
I didn't have a reaction to either one. So the Moderna, I had a slight reaction just because I felt like the needle was still in me for a couple of days afterwards. That's what it felt like.
Okay, so just soreness.
Soreness, yeah. For the Pfizer, I had no symptoms at all, no soreness. So I lucked out. My wife was opposite. She had a lot of symptoms for both.
Moderna took me out for 24 hours. The second.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
that's how she was too.
Took me out for that.
And
hey, Sara, one question, and I know we've been getting this a lot, maybe to speak on it is, for a while we thought, okay, we get our vaccination and now everybody goes back to normal, right? Like we're back to life.
Right.
Is this something that you think we're going to be doing on a regular basis?
Sure.
Like the flu shot, this is going to be an annual deal for the foreseeable future.
So Stephen, I think you can vouch for this, but I've been saying this for about 6 months. Eventually, COVID will become the new flu and the new RSV. So we've got the vaccination. It'll become an annual vaccination is what I predict. And then if we get sick, we have a pill. So eventually it's not going to be this big scary word where somebody gets COVID and everyone freaks out. It'll be just like saying, Rick got the flu. Well, Rick got COVID and he's going to take the pill and he's going to be okay. I think what was scary about COVID is it came on fast. It kept changing. It kept moving the goalpost on us. We never knew really what to expect. I think we have a grasp on it now. We know the vaccines work. We know there's a medication coming. So eventually it's just going to be another thing that happens like the flu, and we'll all just be able to live life. I think you'll see a decrease. We've already seen a decrease in mask wearing, but I think you'll see one where more people are going back to pre-mask life, and may put them on during flu season, which will end up being COVID season as well.
And so speaking of the pill,
yes.
The new pill or medication that's coming out from London, or they've been talking about out there.
Yep.
Is there any new information on that?
So we spoke about this earlier. Probably couldn't hear me because I was garbled, but the new pill is going for FDA approval as we speak. It's been tested, it's working. And then they've already said that once this one's approved, there's already another one in the works that should be approved shortly thereafter.
And
So I
what is this?
anticipate-
But what is, what's,
We're at
Hi, Paul.
11:40. Chris, you gotta, I don't know if they're pushing people back.
Yeah.
I cut this off because this is the visceral part of what we were talking about, but Chris and Sarah and Stephen, this has been great. And I took the action to follow up with our major employers. Thank you, everybody, for being in this room.
How do we
Thank you,
move back to
Paul.
the other room, Paul? Is that something that Alex will coordinate
Go
for
down
us?
to your lower right-hand corner. There's a little button that says leave the room. So
Okay.
Paul, I was just checking with Alex and he says that we still have a little bit of time.
Okay.
So we can keep the
Okay, great.
conversation going. Yeah.
I always screw up. I know that I should ask Rick before but he gives me these scripts. He said, no, don't deviate.
Yeah.
So anyway, so all right, he'll alert us. But so we were right in the middle of pills and
Yeah, so pills.
Yeah.
So the pills should be coming, and it's going to be something that your doctor prescribes you. As soon as you start developing symptoms, you go in, you get tested. If you test positive, they'll prescribe the pill, and it shortens the length and severity of infection.
so is it kind of like when I'm actually just coming out of quarantine, my family and I was struggling with it, and I went and got an infusion.
It would
Is this
replace
going to
the
basically
infusion.
be the pill form of, instead of having to go up and be on an IV?
Yes, it'll
infusion.
replace the infusion. The only time you would do an infusion after that is if for whatever reason your body doesn't react to the pill. But it's just like the flu. If you can't take the flu medication and you end up getting sick, you go to the hospital. So it's going to follow the same path that flu does. And I think you'll just see shorter spans and less intense infections.
But this is for the foreseeable future. Our life is going.
It's not going away.
It is not going to go away. We are going to be doing annual vaccinations, everything like this, at least for the foreseeable future.
The SARS virus has been around forever. If you look at the back of your Lysol bottles, it has always said that it prevents the spread of SARS. So this is not new. CoV-2 is just the new, I guess, presentation of the old SARS virus. So this is not a new virus. And that's why we've been able to develop medications and vaccines because we've been working on it forever. So yes, it's not going away. We're just going to learn to adapt with it, live with it. It's going to be the new flu. And I anticipate probably in about 6 months, we'll get to that point. Now that the kids are able to get vaccinated, we all know if you've had a kid, they're the petri dish. They go to school and bring everything home to you. So if we get them vaccinated, we prevent the spread in the home. Stephen, you were healthy until your daughter brought it home from school. So now if we prevent all the kids from bringing it home, we'll start to see that it's just going to dwindle. I anticipate 6 months, maybe a year. We're all going to be looking at it and just kind of saying, I can't believe this is what took our world down for 2 years. And it'll just be something we live with.
She's only 6 years old, but we're thinking about sending her to boarding school now. That was pretty rough.
A quick question on, and this is, again, something that you hear basically or read on the news. There was a statement that said, that read, if you are unwilling to vaccinate, hospitals will stop or government will stop paying for the treatment for COVID, and now they'll be charging your insurance for that. And needless to say, just once you start going down that rabbit hole, it could get up very expensive. It could become very
expensive. Very expensive. So the truth is that some private doctors have gone this route. Okay. The federally regulated ones, they may spout that left and right, but while the funding is being provided by the government, they can't pick and choose. They can't cherry pick. Private doctors' offices have literally said, we're not seeing you. If we do, you're paying for it. Vaccinate or go somewhere else. And again, just like our clinic, when you walk into our clinic, we set the rules. You wear a mask when you walk into OCCUMED because we're private. So private doctors have come out and said, we will not treat a COVID positive person if they've refused the vaccine.
And there's no legal issues with that. Is that correct? I
None.
mean, as far as
None.
we know, there's no legality to that.
It's a private business. So as long as it's not Medicare, Medicaid funded, government funded, you have the right to choose.
Thank you
It's
for
not the
sharing.
most friendly thing to do, but you're right.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
And Alex is asking if we're good to move. Oh, there we go.
There
We're about to
it
move.
is.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good morning. Before we get started this morning, I'd like to welcome our supporting sponsor, Emily Ackerman with Car Rigs in Ingram.
Awesome. You can go to the next slide. All right, so just taking a little poll. How many of y'all before today have heard of Car Rigs in Ingram? Raise your hand. I know you have. Raise your hand. Anyone? Russell? All right, there's a few of y'all. A lot of y'all still have your screens off, but a lot of y'all don't. I don't think y'all have heard of us. And so I'm trying to change that. My name's Emily Ackerman. I lead business development for the firm. Car Rigs in Ingram is the 22nd largest firm in the country that no one's heard of because 5 years ago, Car Rigs in Ingram acquired 2 firms in Dallas. One of them, actually, Doug Cobalt, who's our partner in charge, has been with that firm forever. It was called Vogel CPAs. A lot of people know that name. The other firm was called Arbach, Albert and Gold. Another great local practice started in the 90s. But CRI as a whole and how we are nationwide, this one sheeter just kind of gives a little bit of the facts about us. But I'll speak to Dallas. We in Dallas have anywhere, and Doug, you can chime in as well. We have anywhere between 60 to 75 CPAs at any given time. We're a full service CPA firm. So anything tax, audit, if you need any kind of estate planning assistance, if you need bookkeeping, payroll, you name it. The nice part and why we joined CRI is there really is never a no where we can't do it. Someone across the firm has that expertise. And so firm wide, we're in over 70 plus offices. And how many of y'all are football fans? Nod if you are. I see a couple of y'all going or yes. So we're in SEC football territory. So a lot of y'all know that. So North Carolina to Florida, all the way west to New Mexico. Sorry, Monica, there's more to life than Ohio. We are all over the Southeast, largest firm headquartered in the South. Next slide. So yeah, just for the sake of time, this sheet really does kind of go over why us and why choosing a firm of ours. I'd like to picture us kind of as that Goldilocks fit, where we're not too big and we're not too small. We really are just right. A lot of companies, maybe in the manufacturing space or small businesses, a lot of times when people outgrow their CPA or they want to make a change, usually has to do with the firm not being large enough or have the resources. It usually takes a retirement or a move or unfortunately a death. People don't wake up feeling like switching CPA firms. But what people want out of their CPA firm is industry expertise and partners that have seen kind of everything. People like Doug, who, if you ask him how long he's been with the firm, it's been a long time. Doug, you want to go off mute and say how long?
Gotta find my mouse cursor, but yeah, I've been with the with Vogel CRI now for 42 years, and so I've been basically the most boring resume in the world. But as Emily said, primarily my background has been in manufacturing, and so we, as a firm, do a lot in that area as well as our office. So
next slide. Talking on manufacturing. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, CRI as a whole, not just in the Dallas office, but nationwide. That's definitely one of our top industries as a whole. When you think of just what industries are popular in the Southeast, it is what you would kind of deem that manufacturing and distribution sector. I know that throughout COVID and beyond COVID and past, present, and future, we're very proactive with our manufacturing clients. Many of them right now are talking about all the pain points of supply chain issues, ERC credits, and all the different other relief funding that is out there. I know that a lot of people are also calling and having the phones ring about tax planning and year end. And I know that we're trying to get at the forefront with that for all of our clients. And Vogel actually got its start when Dallas was a retail manufacturing hub. I didn't realize till I started here that a lot of the World War II uniforms were actually manufactured here in Dallas, Fort Worth. And when you kind of separate the words retail and manufacturing, Vogel as a firm has been working that industry forever, as Doug said. 42 years?
Yep.
You've seen a thing or two. Next slide. Yeah, and so essentially what we would ask you guys or anyone else that you know is if you know anyone that needs any CPA planning or has outgrown their CPA, looking for a big firm resource with that kind of local accounting practice feel free to contact me directly. Doug is our managing partner in the Dallas office. And so if there's anything that you need on the accounting front, he's one of those Renaissance men that has done tax and audit both. Doug, any final words?
No, Emily, I think you did a great job summing up the firm. Like she said, like I said, we do a lot in manufacturing. We have a lot of subsidiary companies, several subsidiary companies that provide other types of services, which is one of the reasons we merged in with CRI to let our clients avail themselves of that. So with that, I guess we'll turn it over to Monica.
Thank you. So today's session is presented by Monica Narvaez with the MKim Law Firm. Monica enjoys advising business from all industries on labor and employment matters. She leverages her experience and knowledge as a certified human resource professional to help businesses navigate the most complex employment situations in the hopes of avoiding litigation, but also strengthening the relationship between management and employees. Monica also litigates disputes before TWC, EEOC, DOL, state and federal courts, and other state and federal regulatory bodies. She also served as a human resources policy attorney for the state of Ohio, where she wrote laws, rules, and policies pertaining to the personnel processes and functions for close to 100,000 employees. She enjoys working with business from all industries and with offices nationally and internationally. This time I would like to welcome Monica. Monica, I'm going to get your presentation up and running.
Thank you.
Get that started as well.
And then I'll be able to advance, correct?
I will need to advance for you.
Oh, okay. Thank you everyone for jumping onto my breakout room. Just to give you a little bit of more of a background on me so that you can understand what I say today is kind of informed by my background, which is a little bit strange. So before I was an attorney, I was in human resources for about little over 5 years. I actually have a degree and a master's in business. And so I wanted to do HR, and I did for a while. And then I decided, not made the best decision, but made a decision to go to law school because I wanted to be an arbitrator. So that didn't happen. And I did go to law school, graduated, but I have done employment law essentially ever since. And I've primarily been on the employer side until October of last year. I started representing employees also, only in very limited industries so that I don't have a conflict. So what has happened over the last year is I have gotten a in the weeds view of what employees think the law is versus what it really is and how that affects the workplace. So when I present, I like to give the HR perspective because I was in HR, the litigator perspective on behalf of the employer because I do that, but then also the litigator perspective on behalf of the employees because I also do that. The other way that I present is I round everything out based on my background in the government. So I worked for the state government in Ohio for about 15 years total. And so it's very regulatory driven in some aspects. I did do employment law. I defended the state of Ohio and different colleges and universities and counties and things like that, which that part was exactly the same. But as far as on the regulatory side of things, I was involved in that because I worked for the Attorney General and I worked for different agencies that were regulators. So I understand what, well, okay, let's preface that. I mostly understand what the government is doing, and I can see trends, and when they say this, they really mean this. So anyway, with all that said, what I wanted to go over today is talking about what is coming in 2022, and essentially what has happened over the last, since the pandemic started. Really, it started a little bit before that, but it amplified what was already happening in society with all the changes that are going on within society. The pandemic really brought everything to the forefront. And so now that everybody is how many months into the pandemic, it's change is the new normal. And that's why I named the presentation, because it is like lightning around, fire hose. You constantly have to be like, what just happened? So, and you've got the federal government fighting with the state government and all that kind of stuff. So with that said, could you please advance to the next slide? All right, so here's what I'm going to cover today. I am going to cover the OSHA rules on vaccines, which just came out yesterday. And so it's, while everybody knew that it was going to be coming out, it obviously actually came out yesterday. So we're going to go into that a little bit. And then the current state of the exemptions, if there are any, to the vaccines. And then there's a recent case where the EEOC, this is the first one on behalf of the EEOC, that's filing a work from home case. So I wanted to go into that because it's new ground. Let's just put it that way. And then I'm going to go into a topic which everybody is calling, and I'm sure anybody who's in HR has heard this, the Great Resignation, because that's what's going on right now, and it's affecting everything else. Then I'm going to just kind of briefly go into what I'm calling the bring on the robots. It's kind of how AI is shaping the workforce. Then I want to get into the joint employer rule, because there's been some recent updates on that as well. And finally, then we'll get to the normal stuff, which always happens at the end of the year. So we can kind of round it all out and help you prepare. And that sounds like a ton. It is. I'm synthesizing it down to the highlights. And then if I get done early, which probably I will, I figured I'd open it up to a lot of questions, because everybody just has questions on like, what in the heck is going on? So if you could advance to the next slide, please. All right. So what's going on with the mandate? As I said, the rules dropped yesterday, and it is 490 pages. And I was in a deposition until 8 o'clock last night, so I have not read all of them, but I'm sure somebody has, and I will eventually read them because it's scintillating reading. But why I point that out is it's a lot. And what is happening is it's coming through OSHA. So why this is extraordinary is OSHA is, as a manufacturer, everybody knows OSHA. It's the health and safety rules that are out there that, you think of slip and falls, and you got to make your workplace safe and all that kind of stuff. What has happened since the beginning of the pandemic is the authority or ambit of what they regulate via OSHA has expanded exponentially. I've had a number of people get, employers get sued for not buying masks, or, I got COVID at work, and they're trying to go after employers through OSHA. Another thing that's happening, this is just a little bit of a sidebar here, is OSHA is where plaintiffs' lawyers are trying to bring in workplace bullying laws as well, trying to get some traction on that. And because it affects the health and safety of the workplace. So what they've done now, and this is official for the federal government, and this is the rule that came out, is they have taken the existing laws on the books that discuss asbestos. And it's an older set of laws, and they have modified those in an extremely clever way to say that OSHA now applies to COVID. And it's very clever. It's also very controversial. And so there's going to be litigation. It hadn't been filed yet because the rules were not out yet. They have now been filed. So when the rules came out yesterday, a bunch of states filed their lawsuits in court. So nobody knows how this is going to pan out. But in the meantime, the federal government is taking the approach that we trump any state mandate. So employers need to know, what do you have to do? So the employers that are covered are employers that have 100 or more employees, and or you're a federal contractor. So if anybody has questions on what a federal contractor is or how do you define that, if you don't know, you probably aren't. But sometimes there are employers, if you get money from the federal government through, say, like a construction grant or whatever, you might be a federal employer. So, or a federal contractor. And that is, there's no minimum on the number of employees. So with 100 or more, though, it's important to realize that the 100 or more is actually measured by full-time, part-time, and anybody who teleworks, right? So even if they're not coming into the office, you still have to include them if they are an employee. It does not include independent contractors. So if you have a bunch of independent contractors, say you have 50 employees, full-time, part-time, whatever, and then you have 65 independent contractors, the law does not apply to you, okay? So that's an important distinction. Another thing that is in the rule is it's 100 employees employer-wide. It's all the locations. It's not just Garland. It's, Garland, Ohio, wherever. I'd say Ohio because that's where I'm from. But it is, we think, we're not sure, only the US employees. So all the locations within the US. If globally you are 150, but you're only 50 in the US, then it's probably not going to apply to you. But that remains to be seen. There could be some fleshing out as the weeks go on. So what the new thing that happened yesterday, in addition to the rules actually coming out in writing, is that the date was moved back to January 4th for compliance. It was December, I believe, 8th. It's been moved back to January 4th in large part. I say that because on December 5th, there are a few of the mandates that go into effect, and that is the mask mandate. So if you have unvaccinated people that are in your workplace, they have to be wearing a mask. And the other thing that goes into effect on December 5th is that you have to offer up to 4 hours to actually get the shot. So that would be both shots. So it should be 8. Unless they're getting the Johnson & Johnson shot, which is a 1 dose. And you also have to offer sick leave if there are any adverse effects from the vaccine. So essentially it's like it was before. If somebody gets COVID, they got their leave. But now if you're unvaccinated and you get COVID, you don't get leave anymore unless the employer is offering that. But under the federal government, you don't get it. But you do if you're going to get the shot and you get sick from the shot. So that's December 5th. That's when those go into effect. And then the remaining rules go into effect on January 4th. So what the the rule actually provides is that if you are one of these employers or a federal contractor, your employees have to be vaccinated or they have to submit to weekly testing. And I put an asterisk by this because it actually is not, it's the employer's option of whether or not they want to give the employees the option. So if an employer decides that we don't want to have anybody unvaccinated, you can require all of your employees to be vaccinated. You do not have to allow them the option of doing weekly testing. And because I think that that's going to create confusion because most people think that they have to do one or the other, right? But it depends on the employer. So I'm Joe, employer, and I say, nope, I don't want to offer the weekly testing option. Then everybody's has to be vaccinated. If you have an employee that comes to you and says, but President Biden said this, then that's not true. It's up to the employer. So the other caveat to it is if you have teleworking employees, or you have employees that largely work from home, and I say largely as in they only ever work from home, they're actually not subject. They count in the amount to go to 100, but they're not subject to the mandate. So they don't have to be vaccinated and they don't have to do the weekly testing. So it's very strange. I think it's going to create a lot of confusion because then you're going to have the people that have to come to work, right, say, well, why do the work from home people not have to do this? It's a potential for it. That's an HR nightmare. So I wanted to point that out because that's something that's going to come down in the near future, I guess after January 4th. So that's one thing. And then the bottom line is you can terminate or discipline, but terminate if you want to, if these employees don't comply. And just like every other lawyer on earth, we always say, but, it's a maybe. And I'm going to get to that in a minute, and that's going to come under the exemptions. So if you could advance to the next slide, please. All right. So what happens if you don't follow this order? Nobody knows. And if somebody tries to tell you what's going to happen, it's not for sure because nobody knows what the litigation is going to result in. And I'm going to get to this in a second, but there's Texas laws that are in place and executive orders that are in conflict. So for now, my best advice would be follow it to the extent that you can if you are one of these employers. And maybe offer the weekly testing option so that in case this doesn't get upheld, you didn't just force a whole bunch of people to get vaccinated and then they get mad at you. It's completely up to the employer. But for right now, the federal government is taking the approach that it is mandatory. It does not matter what Governor Abbott says. We rule and you lose. So OSHA then can come into your workplace and do an investigation. And what might result from that investigation is a fine. And the fines are up to $13,653. I have no idea where they got that number. And it's per serious violation. So if anybody's ever dealt with OSHA before, they know that serious is not really defined. And even if it is, it depends on which investigator comes into your workplace. So it remains to be seen what the fines will be. It might be, as the litigation plays out, what OSHA may do, because they've done this in the past, is sort of a slap on the wrist type thing. And I've had some negotiations with OSHA early on in the pandemic for mask and exposure lawsuits or claims by employees. And it's one of those where everybody just agrees to follow the law. So you have to enter into an agreement that you're going to follow the law. You don't have to pay anything, but So I don't know what's going to happen with OSHA. Realistically, OSHA is so busy. They're already short-staffed. They were short-staffed before the pandemic. They're extra short-staffed now because they've been out doing investigations just in general. And so, you know, that's why I put the dice on here, because you're rolling the dice. You don't know if OSHA is going to come in. But what I would guess is, since this is an important, I guess, I don't know, it's an important part of the Biden administration, they want everybody to be vaccinated. So I think what would happen is OSHA is going to make sure that there's resources available to go out and investigate. So the chances of being investigated for not following this rule are greater than, say, you know, the soda machine is broken and whatever the normal OSHA violation is. So that remains to be seen. So Liz, if you could forward, please. So what happens if you mandate the vaccine and it doesn't, and the employee has an adverse reaction? So what happens with that? And this has been going on since the vaccines came out, to be honest. And what OSHA is trying to clarify through the rule that got released yesterday is that if you're following what OSHA says that you can do, and you're mandating how they say that you can mandate, and you're offering the time off to go get the shot, and you're giving them sick leave if they do have an adverse reaction, you're most likely not liable for any adverse effects from the vaccine. I put a caveat in there because there are workers' comp claims currently percolating up through the system, through the court system, that say that, wait a minute, your employer mandated this. It is workers' comp if they have an injury. So there are cases that are going to set the standard, I think, on this. And if I had to guess, Texas is going to be, well, I guess it depends on which court you get in front of. And not to get political, but it gets political. If you're in front of a Democratic judge, they're probably going to be like, nope, it's not workers' comp. If you're in front of a Republican judge, they might be more likely to say, you know what, this shouldn't have been a mandate in the first place because Governor Abbott has an executive order, so it is workers' comp. So one thing that I would make sure is if you have employment practices liability insurance, it's a type of coverage that you can get through your insurance broker. If you have it, ask what is covered, okay? And the reason why I say that is because in Texas, you don't have to be a subscriber to workers' comp. So if you are a subscriber to workers' comp, then your workers' comp coverage would cover it. If you're not a subscriber to workers' comp and you have some sort of like a third party supplemental insurance, check with them to see, all right, what's going to happen if somebody has an adverse effect from these shots? Am I covered? And then if you don't have any workers' comp coverage at all, which I know that there are some people that are just private pay, they take their chances, then I would for sure make sure that if you do have employment practices liability coverage, if it's covered. So just to get all your ducks in a row to make sure that you've got something to rely on, because another thing that is with the employment practices liability insurance in particular is a lot of times it'll provide legal representation. So it's just some things to think about when you're making this plan. And then, as in all practices with HR or as an employer, just make sure that you're consistently applying the rules and applying what you think are the rules to everybody evenly, consistently, fairly. Just don't discriminate. Don't even look like you're discriminating. Don't retaliate, and document, document, document. So that's the best way with OSHA in general, but particularly here, is the more documentation you have to show the investigator when they come in, the better. because they can see then that you were complying, or at least trying to comply, and they can verify that you're not a bad actor as an employer, and that helps with minimizing the fine, the amount of the fine. That all is a factor into how they determine how much money they're going to assess against you. So if you could go to the next slide, please. All right, so the next thing I wanted to cover, because I think what's gonna happen, well, it's already happening, but what's gonna happen more is everybody's gonna wanna work from home that can. Now, obviously in the manufacturing world, a large percentage of people cannot work from home. You can't make widgets at home, most likely. But there are office staff and other staff that can work from home. And it's important now, and this is going to come up in this EEOC case that I'm going to talk about here in a minute, but it's really important to determine who can work from home so that you can address any request that somebody makes. And how do you determine that is largely dependent on what your job description says. If you have a position description or a job description, make sure that it is current, that you, and this is me putting my HR and employee litigator hat on, make sure that the employee knows what they're supposed to be doing. So probably show them the job description or position description, or at least run it by them, get some buy-in, get them to sign it, so that you can use that against them and say, remember when I said you had to come to work because it was an essential function, and you were like, yeah, that sounds great, whatever. That you don't have to worry about that argument. So document what the job is. And if they can't work from home, no brainer. If they can, and they have been during part of the pandemic, that's when you really got to say, all right, is working from home, we had to because we were under the orders to work from home, can we still do that? And if not, why? What is your business reason why you cannot allow somebody to work from home? Because that is what's going to come up in the discrimination case. If you get accused of discrimination or retaliation or harassment, anything like that, you're going to have to show, no, the reason why we didn't let this person work from home was because of XYZ business reason. For example, we got way more work coming in, and we need the supervisors to actually be on site supervising people, eyeballs on. They can't do that from home. And so we do need them to be on site at the manufacturing plant. So that's another consideration. If somebody does come to you and wants to work from home, what you need to do now is engage in the interactive process under the ADA. The ADA, just as a quick refresher, and I'm sure everybody knows it, but just to give you an idea, is the Americans with Disabilities Act, and it applies to any employer that has more than 15 employees. So if you're less than that, you can just tune out, go check your email or whatever. But most employers follow the ADA. And in following the ADA, one of the things that you have to do is somebody comes to you and says, I need XYZ accommodation. Here it would be working from home. So then what you have to do is have a discussion. And when they say interactive process, that's what the courts focus on, is the interaction. It's the employee says, I want to do this. And the employer says, well, I don't want you to do this. What does your doctor say? And then the doctor says, yes, this person needs to work from home, and here is why. Or whatever reason they want to work from home. Typically it comes down to a medical provider. And then the employer has to assess what the doctor says and see if the doctor has provided sufficient information to approve or not the work from home request. And so that's a back and forth process. And the courts look for a back and forth process. They don't just look for, employee came to me, I said, give me your papers. And then the employee comes back with the papers and they're great. And the employer's like, nah, denied. You have to actually look at it and talk about it. So then the next thing to consider is that make sure that the approval and or denial, either one, whatever decision you make, is tied to the job. So that comes back to the legitimate non-discriminatory reason, but then also consistent with how you're handling other people. So say, for example, you've got payroll, 3 payroll people that can do their job from home. One of them, you give, you grant the request to work from home. The other 2, you're like, I don't like you, so no. So that's the consistency that the courts are going to look for and look for the reason why. Now, if you have one payroll person that's superstar, can do everything from home and is getting everything done, and the other 2 don't get anything done, and that's the reason why you need them to be at work so that somebody can actually be standing over them and watching them all the time, that is a valid reason, right? But you have to get into the weeds of the why. And then the last thing on this work from home concept, because I'm not kidding, when I say I'm representing employers, it's gone through the roof with, or sorry, employees, it's gone through the roof with these requests. And the requests are largely based on, because I have somebody at home that is immunocompromised. And why they're asking it that way is it's not their own disability. So the Americans with Disabilities Act does not apply because it's their relative or friend or whoever they live with, but they still want to protect their loved one at home and they're not covered under the ADA. So they're just requesting work from home, kind of hoping that the employer will do it, and the employer then has to make a decision. So this can come up in a lot of different contexts, and it is. I have clients, I cannot tell you, I have all these employee clients are like, well, I should be able to work from home because I've got somebody that is immunocompromised. And it's like, okay, it's not how it works. So just be aware of that. And then document any performance issues. Obviously, I'm always harping on people, document, and then document some more. But for sure in this context, be very vigilant going forward to document performance issues, because a way to deny a work from home request is, as I just said, because you're not working from home, like you can tell that you're not productive, and you need to document that. So if you've got keystrokes per hour, or you can tell on their computer if the employee is not smart and looks up the internet and shops all day on their employer computer, keep those records, because that is how you're going to win or lose a case. Okay, if you go to the next slide, please. All right, so what about Texas? And I made the picture of Texas bigger because everything is bigger in Texas. So I just thought that would be fun. So there's the OSHA rule that dropped yesterday, requires state laws, which that would be in a state that has its own OSHA rule, which does not apply to Texas. But I'm throwing this out there in case you support multiple states and there is a state that you support or you're operating in that has its own state OSHA. In that regard, the state rules have to be at least as effective as the federal mandate, meaning vaccinate or weekly testing, masks, all that. Texas does not follow its own rules. It actually follows OSHA's rules, but the problem in Texas, well, depending on your thought process, is it a problem or is it not? There is a current executive order that Governor Abbott signed. I should have looked it up. It's Executive Order 40. It's not that old, and it's already being heavily litigated because in his executive order, it says vaccine mandates, even for private employers, are prohibited. And So the controversy is, can a governor mandate private employers? Typically, the governor only has authority over governmental type agencies. But Governor Abbott took it one step further and is like, nope, nobody that operates in Texas can have a vaccine mandate. And on top of it, there are the medical exemptions and religious exemptions, but there's also a conscientious, like a conscience exemption. And I'm not sure, I know what the intent is. It's the people that maybe aren't super religious, so they're not going to be able to get a priest to sign off on their accommodation form. But in general, they don't like vaccines, or they don't like this vaccine because it's not entirely approved. It's still under emergency approval, something like that. That is in this executive order that was submitted by the Governor Abbott, and that is where the conflict is going to happen. So stay tuned. I'm not sure who's going to win, and but it's hopefully there'll be some resolution here pretty soon. And unemployment, that's another thing about Texas. In the mandate, the vaccine mandate that came out yesterday, unemployment, they don't say that you can't get unemployment if you're terminated for not being vaccinated, but that's certainly the implication from the federal government's perspective. Texas doesn't say anything about unemployment if you get terminated for being unvaccinated. And I suspect with the fact that there's an executive order from the governor, which does control over the governmental agencies, and one of those governmental agencies is the unemployment compensation section of the Texas Workforce Commission, then I suspect that Texas is probably going to pay unemployment. And that is important to employers because your rates might go up, your experience rates. During COVID, they stopped those. If people were laid off or whatever, because of COVID, the experience rate for employers weren't impacted, and it didn't raise your premiums. That, I think, in large part has stopped. So I'm not sure what's going to happen within Texas with the unemployment. So that's what's going on in Texas to keep your eye on. And if you could advance to the next slide, please. All right, so what are the exemptions? One thing we know, at least from the federal government's perspective, is that prior infection is not a valid exemption. It's just not. Now, that might change. It might be applicable in Texas, but right now from the federal government, a prior infection is not an exemption. You have to still be vaccinated. And this is happening. Employers are getting these requests. I have employee clients that have made this request. And so it's a real thing. Medical exemptions and religious, those are two. I'm going to get into religious a little bit more because the EEOC just issued guidance the other day, but the medical exemptions, it's the same process that's been going on throughout the pandemic for working from home or anything. What has happened recently, though, is the courts have they're starting to not like these medical requests because they're trying to get everybody vaccinated. So just you can do what you want. If somebody, if an employer comes to you and says, I don't want to be vaccinated right now because I have an increased risk of blood clotting, and the shot is known to create blood clots, right? And my doctor has said, I don't want to be vaccinated right now. You as an employer are welcome to accept that. Just make sure that you're applying it even-handedly. The other one that's been coming up, and this was happening during COVID too, but this is becoming more important, are people that are trying to conceive or are pregnant. They either do or don't want to get vaccinated. And if they don't, pregnancy is not technically a disability. So what do you do with that? So that's another thing that's still an issue, and I think is probably going to become more of an issue as the adverse as the CDC issues more guidance on what are the actual effects of the shots, that's going to become more of an issue. So, but turning to the religious exemptions, because the EEOC just issued guidance, the factors that they will consider in a violation, so this is what the employers need to be careful to follow, is what is the employee's consistently held professed belief, right? And I'm going to tell a funny story because this one just cracked me up. But so if you have always been against vaccines because the vaccines that use fetal cells in the whatever faith, there are some that use fetal cells, okay? And if you are against abortion, you don't want to take the vaccine, right? But if you're taking every other vaccine and that also has fetal cells in it or any other medicine, that might not be a consistently held professed belief. Or if you all of a sudden overnight become Catholic so that you can say that you don't agree with abortion, then that's probably not going to allow you to get an exemption unless the employer lets you. But from a court's perspective, that might be, it's like, come on, this looks a little fishy. You just became X religion to do this. The other factor is whether the request is grounded on the religious reasons. So it actually has to be something that I'm just using Catholic because I know that there are Catholic people that have put in requests for exemption. I am Catholic. I've always been Catholic. I've always been against vaccines, and I'm against vaccines because they use, in some shape or fashion, aborted fetal cells. But if it's because they're afraid and they're afraid they're going to get sick or they're going to have an adverse reaction, that's not a religious reason. That's just fear. Okay, so that's what that means. The grounded on needs to be on the actual religious beliefs. And then the third thing is the timing. So say you just request, you're like, well, I'm trying to conceive, so I don't want to get a vaccine. And then that's denied. And then you're like, oh yeah, 2 days later, I'm Catholic now, and I want to not get the vaccine. So probably makes the person look disingenuous. And that is something that the employer can look at. Long story short, the employer can get into the weeds of these things, can inquire into the beliefs. I just recently had, this isn't my client, it's one of my friend's clients, and they were subject to a vaccine mandate. And they were subject to a vaccine mandate and they didn't want to be vaccinated. So they decided that, I don't know what it is about, I can't remember what it is about the Greek Orthodox religion, but that one is the gold standard for not getting a vaccine. And I'm not kidding, that's what I was told. Okay, so they went to a couple Greek Orthodox churches, learned the priest, I'm not sure what they're called, sorry, the names of these people, the tenets of all this other stuff, went to a hearing with the employer, spat out all this stuff like, yes, I am a Greek Orthodox, or I'm an Orthodox believer, and here's why, and here's my priest's name, and here's his priest's wife's name, and got an exemption. And in my mind, it was just like, wow, that's a lot of hoops to jump through and a lot of studying to do to get the exemption, but the person just did not want to be vaccinated. So those are the types of things that are happening, okay, in addition to stolen vaccine cards. And okay, so Liz, can you forward to the next slide, please? All right, so here's the case that got filed in September, but it is still going on. It's not been kicked out yet, so that's a good sign. It was filed in September in Georgia, which is not Texas's circuit, but Georgia, the circuit that it's in is similar enough to Texas that it could affect Texas. So early on in the pandemic, this employee requested to work from home as an accommodation, just regular before vaccines, all this other stuff. And the employer denied the employee, but then we went under lockdown, and the employer then had everybody working from home 4 days a week. So employee comes in this 1 day a week and does that for the remainder of till June, when the employer brought everybody back 5 days a week, and the employee asked again to work from home. And the reason being, she had serious lung issues, a pulmonary disease of some sort, and she didn't want to be exposed to COVID. And there were other employees that were working from home. Employer denies her, says, nope, you got to be here 5 days a week. And then a month later, terminates her for performance reasons. So she goes to the EEOC, files a EEOC charge. The EEOC has actually taken this case on behalf of this employee. Okay, so it's actually the EEOC suing this employer. In addition to the employee, they become aligned, and then they're going to prosecute this case. So this is one to watch, because this is the first of its kind where the EEOC has taken on a case solely based on the fact that working from home was an option for a lot of employers during the pandemic. If you were an employer that had some people, I know in the manufacturing world it's only going to be some, if you had some people that work from home, that is now a reasonable accommodation under the Americans with Disabilities Act. It was not before. It was kind of like a, yeah, if you got to, if you can do it, that's great. But it wasn't something that was expected. And it's now becoming expected. So, and the reason being, and again, I've got clients that are arguing this, and by arguing this, meaning I'm arguing this for them, is, well, why can't I work from home now? I did my job, for 2.5 years or 2 years completely fine. Why won't you allow me to work from home now? And you have to have a very good reason why. So it has to be a discipline, like, well, because I know that you're petting your dogs all day or doing whatever, and I can prove it because I see your keystrokes. I've got a super secret nanny cam in your house, and I'm watching you pet your dogs all day and sleep or whatever it is. I'm not saying go put super secret nanny cams in anybody's house, but whatever. The way you monitor their work, then that's how you're going to prove the case. So this is definitely it's pretty extraordinary for the EEOC to take a case on behalf of an employee anyway. And this is going to be it's going to be in the news. So keep an eye on it. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so the Great Resignation. This is something that's sort of been in the background for the past couple months. Basically what happened during COVID is I think a lot of people realized that they're like, this sucks. I don't want to ever go back to the office again. I don't want to commute. I don't want to dress up. I want to wear my business mullet outfit, which is the suit on top and then the shorts on the bottom. That's what I call the business mullet. They don't want to go back. And so what has happened is people are not coming back to work. Everybody thought that with the unemployment supplement that would change. It didn't. And in part, it's because of the child care credits that a lot of people are getting. It's keeping them afloat, and they don't want to go back to work because then they'll not meet the financial threshold. But in large part, it's people that are just like, I'm going to look for a remote job because I know I can do it. I've got my office already set up. I am going to go do, work for Facebook or whatever in California, and I can do it from Texas. They're probably paying more. So it's something that is really affecting employers, and it's it's affecting me in the employer world because they can't find anybody. Okay. Like I have clients that can't find anybody that can pass a drug test, and they're willing to waive the drug test so that they can get people. That's how desperate they are for applicants. But then on the employee side, they're using it to get away with what my employer brain would call murder. They're like slacking off, they're doing whatever because they know they're probably not going to get fired because the employer can't find anybody to backfill. So this is something that is becoming an issue. And I don't think it's going anywhere. It's just something to keep in mind with bonuses, like bonus payments, sign-on bonuses, paying people to apply to the job, paying people to interview. Those are all becoming factors, and they potentially open up the door to Fair Labor Standards Act, which is the pay law, those type of violations. So I'm just putting a pin in that so that everybody's aware that this is an issue out there. So Liz, if you could please forward. Okay, so I'm calling it Robot HR, and just because I love this picture. And what this is the EEOC just issued guidance. It was less than 2 weeks ago. I think it was about a week ago, where they are now setting up a special committee to look into AI hiring tools. And that is the application systems and those where you go in and it scans for certain words and then it spits forward the applications that meet the parameters of whatever AI software you're using. The problem from the EEOC's perspective, it's been this way for a while, but now they're officially attacking it, is that sometimes those softwares are not vetted for implicit bias or what's unintended discrimination. So disparate impact is what it's called in the law. It unnecessarily filters people from getting to the next step, right? It filters out their application. Like, for example, I have an employee right now that I'm representing against a big worldwide real estate corporation. We are suing them for multiple things. One of the things is the control that they put on this realty owner, and through the AI software that the real estate company requires applicants to apply for. So I actually took this test because I was like, all right, let's see how hard this is. It was a 40-minute test, and I am not kidding when I say it was almost as hard as the bar. It was asking me to define words like a bower, which is a medieval term for a tower. And I'm like, most people do not know that word. I know it because I'm a nerd and I read medieval historical fiction novels. But I wouldn't have known that word. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how many people are screened out of this process because they don't know what a bower is? And that is exactly what the EEOC is looking for. They're looking for, what is this process? Who's getting screened out? I want to make sure that everybody's getting an equal shake. And that is now a driving force within the EEOC. So I wanted to point that out because that's going to be coming up here in 2022. Okay, next slide, please. All right, let me see. Hold on one second. Okay, I'm just making sure that when I need to shut my mouth. All right, so joint employer updates. Just on the 29th of October, there was a case that was considered basically the nail in the coffin for what President Trump had done. He had rolled back some of the joint employer mandates that were coming out of the National Labor Relations Board. And the reason being was there was a lot of staffing companies and different types of employers that were considered joint employers, so equally on the hook for a lawsuit, but they weren't actually the employer. Somebody else was paying the employee, but they say, for example, this happens in staffing companies all the time. Staffing company pays the worker is on site at the manufacturing plant. Well, the manufacturing plant was the joint employer and they were liable. And so the employee is suing everybody. President Trump tried to roll that back a little bit so that there was some demarcation between the different entities. And that has now gone back to the way that it was before, in that if you are involved with an employee and you're kind of, I guess, exerting some control, you actually, could you advance to the next slide? Thank you. it comes down to the control test. So even if you're not the employer on paper, you don't issue the paycheck. If you're telling the people when to come to work, you have a say in hiring or firing, you're supervising them, you kind of determine what they're going to make, you're probably going to be an employer. And case in point, I have another employee case where we're suing a big corporation on this exact issue. We've got two entities that we're suing for, and it's under the Fair Labor Standards Act because we're trying to get to the big dollars. And it's exactly the argument that we're making. So the rule is going to probably switch back in 2022. It's not on the books yet, but they're thinking it's going to be in 2022, that it's going to switch back to the way that it was before, that if you have control over workers, you probably are going to be considered a joint employer. All right, so trying to get trying to wrap this up here. So the normal end of the year fun. Oh, I'm sorry, Liz, could you advance to the next slide? All right, so the normal end of the year stuff is what we normally speak on in these instances. This is just like any other year, but there's still some COVID weirdness. One of the things that I wanted to point out is the end of the year is a lot of times when employee bonuses are distributed. And the issue that employers need to keep in mind is, are the bonuses discretionary or non-discretionary? And the reason why that's important is, one, if it's non-discretionary and the person meets the threshold, they get the bonus, but it also affects the wage rates. So just be aware that if you give a bonus, it could affect the overall hourly rate for that employee and affect their overtime rate for that pay period. So just make sure you're paying your people right. So either call the wonderful people at Carr, Riggs and Ingram and ask them about how do you do it from a tax perspective? How do you make sure you're doing it right? Or consult with your attorney to, there's a calculation that you have to do to figure out what the rate is just for that pay period that you're paying a bonus in. So just be aware of that. So COVID has affected holiday parties. And this year, I think there's a lot more in-person things going on, but you still have the same concerns. Do you have a vaccinated people party and a non-vaccinated people party? Or do you have everybody wears masks and whatever? Or do you just say, all right, whatever happens, happens. It's Vegas for the night and I'm not going to be liable. If somebody catches COVID, what happens? So just be aware of these issues. In addition to the normal, don't let people get too drunk. Don't let them drive home, things like that, because those are still issues. But the biggest issue is if you've got people making out in the closet, and yes, I am that HR attorney that talks like that because people do it. You got people making out at the closet at the holiday party, they might catch COVID. In addition to drawing a sexual harassment lawsuit, you got two things to worry about now, so just be careful. Layoffs are usually an issue at this time of year, so be aware of any issues of if you're going to be laying people off, did they just ask to be exempt from the vaccination and then all of a sudden they get laid off? They're going to think it's retaliation, and you need to make sure that you've got the documentation to say, no, it was because our work is down 60% and you don't have a job anymore. So just be aware of that issue. Now is another time where I want to point out, especially this year, is updating your policies and your employee handbooks, because one, you need to do it. And you also need to be aware of it because there's probably been some policy changes because of COVID. So have that on the radar of what's going to happen, either the end of this year, early next year. Roll out the new policies, especially if you have the vaccine policy or work from home policy. Just make sure that everything is current, because that is what the first thing that plaintiffs' lawyers look at is the employee handbook or the policies. And then the second thing that we do is try to say that it created a contract so that we can sue the employer under a breach of contract theory. So just make sure that your policies say what you want them to say and they're up to date. And then the last thing before I wrap this up is what are the COVID protocols going to be for 2022? Now's the time to sort of take a step back, think about, all right, are we going to have a hybrid space or hybrid work going on? Are we going to have alternating shifts so that we can kind of keep people in the same pod so that they're not as likely to expose each other to COVID? Things like that. Just, or is it going to be, nope, we're back to normal. Everybody's vaccinated. Everything's done. We're going to pretend like the pandemic never happened. Whatever it is, make sure that you tell your employees so that they know, and then you can roll it out. And I am going to go a little off topic here because I promised a certain someone that is on this presentation that I would work Sock Monkey into the presentation. So I am completely unrelated to anything to do with COVID, but we'll just say Sock Monkey says, make sure you got all your documentation. So anywho, if you could present or roll to the next slide, it's just my contact information. And at this point, I will open it up for questions.
Thank you so much, Monica. So yes, we are open for questions now. If you want to drop your question in the chat, or you're free to unmute yourself to directly ask Monica a question. Our first question, what are the limits on that sick leave if there are effects from the vaccine?
Not sure yet. I can get back to everybody. It's not, nobody really knows, because I think what's going to come down to is there's going to be the initial what's provided, but then there's going to be, what if there's lingering effects? What if it creates a disability? You know, like say, for example, somebody has a stroke, God forbid, but it creates a long time, because then it's going to bleed over into accommodating, like the ADA. So do you need to accommodate, and do you need to offer sick leave as an accommodation? You're going to probably have some workers' comp issues going on there. So if workers' comp pays them to be off, that's going to trump the sick leave that might be offered because they get something through the workers' comp. So I'm going to give you the typical lawyer question, or sorry, answer of it depends. Stay tuned.
Do you have any other questions? So Monica, another question. So when should businesses start engaging their legal team, given the constant change in laws?
Well, and I'm not saying this as a lawyer, I swear. I'm saying this as an HR person, as soon as you possibly can. And the reason why I say that is because lawyers, if you can get a lawyer that you trust and build a relationship that knows your business, it's better to have them on retainer or call them with a 5-minute question so that you avoid a $10,000 issue. So I would say that you call, if you have a very strong HR team, they can do a lot. And a lot of what I do for my employer clients is I get the weird questions, right? I get the, oh my gosh, I've never seen this before. What's the second guess on this one? But I would say as early as possible, if for no other reason, as a sounding board, as an HR person, or just to make sure that as an employer, you're not, because a lot of times what happens, lawyers, since we represent so many different types of entities, we see a lot of different issues, whereas the employer might not see it and think of it only in their tunnel. And that's why it's in my mind worth it to engage somebody, even an HR consultant, that sees a lot of what's going on. So I would say as soon as possible.
Looks like our breakout room is going to be closing in about 30 seconds. So I just wanted to thank both Monica as well as Carr, Riggs, and Ingram for sponsoring this session. So we will be moving over shortly. Please hang tight so we can hear a wrap up from Chris Merlick.
We're going to get started in this breakout room where Ayako Schuster will be talking and presenting. And the presenter for this room is Veritex Community Bank. So I'm going to spotlight Jamie here, who will give some sponsor remarks before we start our presentation.
Yeah, just real quick, and thank you. We've been involved, I guess, since day one with the manufacturing day, both as title sponsor and as others. And I'm very happy to see that there are plenty of sponsors to go around for this event. Thank you to all the various sponsors, Texas Security Bank and the other banks that are involved. As we know, to be a vibrant community, we need the involvement of the entire community. And just very, very good to see that all the banks are participating and doing very well. So we're certainly encouraged by all that. Veritex Bank, as you know, or you may not know, is a community bank that we started actually as a bank called Professional Bank back in 2003. It was purchased by the Veritex Bank Group in 2010. And since then, through acquisitions and just organic growth, we've grown to be about a $10 billion bank here domiciled in Dallas. And so what we do is not anything different than I've done for 41 years here sitting in Garland, Texas. Being a banker is we just strive real hard to take care of those fiercely independent, entrepreneurial types of clients that seem to dot the landscape in our communities. And we're very diverse, and we have a tremendous portfolio of various customers. It's been a blessing to serve in here. And I will say this, I appreciate everything the Chamber does to facilitate events like this. And being supportive of our manufacturing community is very important. That has been a huge part of our success, my success personally as a banker for like I said, too long, but around 41 years. And we love the fact that we have a support group for them. Veritex Bank is here and available for any and all needs. And we want to be a good participant and a good supporter of the Chamber and our community. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamie. Well, I'm going to introduce our speaker for today, which is Ayako Schuster. She is the City of Garland's new Director of Economic Development. Ayako is responsible for business recruitment and expansion, real estate development and redevelopment, and working closely with community stakeholders to support workforce development. Now, prior to joining the City of Garland, Ayako served as Vice President of the Economic Development for the Garland Economic Development Partnership. And she has been providing leadership and oversight for economic development activities. With over 20 years in Garland, she has been building trusted working relationships with businesses and stakeholders locally and regionally, which assists the city's economic development collaborations. So Ayako, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Andrea, and good morning, everybody. I think a lot of you, some of you know me long time. Like Andrea said, I've been in Garland for 20 years. And, 2000, I started as an economic development intern. And 6 years ago, I moved to the City of Garland, but my role didn't really change. So it's really, I see Rick's face, Unity Manufacturing. And hey, Rick, I haven't seen you for a long time. It's great to see you. And again, it's really, I grew up here and I'm from Japan. Of course, many of you know that, but I learned a lot. And then Garland is the one kind of feel like raised me. And of course, Chamber staff, it's more than, it's really my family. So I really enjoy what I do. And thank you very much for the opportunity. So how long I have it? 30 minutes? Andrea? Until
40 minutes to present plus about 5 minutes of Q&A.
Okay, so, well, I have about 50 slides and, I kind of thought about, okay, what the manufacturing and that what's the, what you guys interested. So if you have any, I think about 20 people in the group, if you have any question, please feel free, stop and ask, it's fine. There, I thought it's very interesting data about workforce. I wanted to share with you guys and, it can be there are lots of numbers. So if you have any question, please feel free, stop me and ask. Okay, so let's cross fingers if I can do this. And do you see it? Okay, good. Okay, very good. Okay, so if I can go next slide. Hold on just a second. There you go. Okay, so the manufacturing day. So first, really quickly, how economic development work in Garland. You see chamber and city, there is kind of who is leading which effort. But again, our goal is there is no wrong door. So if you have any question, if you are thinking to expand or you have any issues, something, just please give me your call, give, Reg, Paul, Andrea, anybody at the chamber staff, we find the answer for you. If I don't have answer, I can forward a message to chamber staff. So, but it's mainly that's how economic development work in the city of Garland. Of course, the chamber workforce development, small business development, which of course Andrea lead on this. Workforce development, of course, Dallas College, TWC, GISD, everybody in this team. I always say economic development takes a village. So it's really you guys too. You guys are part of economic development. So we wanted to improve the, all the economy of Garland. Of course, chamber leading and retention and the marketing and retail development is really both team, we work together. On the city side, we mainly work on the recruitment and attraction piece. And of course, these days, we're really focusing on the redevelopment. And of course, those expansion, recruitment, those incentive conversation, we do that. And again, the marketing is both team. So this is, of course, everybody know, Garland new 2020 census just came out, 246,000 people. It's growing. It's not the really big jump, but definitely growing due to the all the new apartments and a lot of multifamily high density development that's adding some population in Garland. We are 12th largest in the state of Texas. And of course, manufacturing history started in 1938. First recruitment for Garland was Resistor Hatco. I don't know if somebody from Hatco is here today, but that was the first industry, and then craft came in 1948. So it's really long history of manufacturing in Garland. So everybody's interested about labor force, workforce, and I try to put together some positive news. I know everybody, not just you guys, any industry is suffering for the finding right people, right attitude, right skills, right? So where we are now. So when we look at the people working in Garland, we found 50% of workers is the one live within 18.1 mile. It's 50%, which is going to Frisco, Coppell, you see the Coppell, and the South Dallas, of course, Forney, Rockwall, Wiley, of course, 18 mile is right there. But surprisingly, it's really 50% of people is coming more than, farther down, more than 18 miles. So some folks are coming definitely farther, places. But, of course, dark area is really those people living in that area and they're working in Garland. So largest concentration, as you see, within the Garland, Rowlett, on the east side of Dallas, and of course, Saxe, the Rowlett and Saxe, a lot of folks living and working in Garland. This is not just the manufacturing, this is all workers in Garland. And this is the Garland resident labor force information. When we're looking at Garland itself, population 18 plus is 185,000 people. This is including people retired, people in the school, which all included. So the labor force is the one we're looking at. This is, people actively seeking to work. That's 126,000. So 10-mile radius, it's about, 583,000 people, 18-mile, 1.6 million. So we're trying to kind of give you idea of your labor pool. When we're talking about 50% of employees living in this 18-mile, what is the pool, which is about 1.6 million people. 25-mile radius, it's going to be about 2 million people. So those guys, the one kind of that's our labor force pool. Those guys, top 4 industry, which area they're working on, of course, healthcare, retail trade, construction, manufacturing, about 10%, 11% of people in Garland working in manufacturing. So it's about 8% of people living in those, the radius, working in manufacturing industry. Unemployment rate, it's good for the Garland, but it's not so good for you guys. Probably if you wanted to hire people right now, that's the kind of most current unemployment rate when we were putting together this presentation. But Garland is 5.2%, and which is compared to other county, state, national level, it's the lowest. So yeah, people, I guess it's a lot of people Garland is working. So, people talking about a lot, you hear a lot of people is moving to Texas, and of course, especially North Texas region. We kind of looking at the Garland, and in that, the yellow ring is 18-mile radius. So this, I wanted to show this, where is the population is growing. So yellow is a high population growth, which is 6% plus per year growth. A lot of people, of course, Forney, the Colony, Laurie's Crossing, or this kind of Lucas in the north of Riley area, it's really high population growth. Again, this is a census tract. So it's when you go to kind of outside, the census block is pretty big. So probably next time they will divide the census block. So probably it's gonna change a little bit. But again, this is between 2016 to 2021, last 5 years, where the population growth is. Of course, the Colony Frisk area, you see a lot of growth right there. So now we're looking at the estimate for the next 5 years, 2021 to 2026. Still, of course, that Wiley area, the northeast side, the growth is big. But again, the Forney and the Kendall, I think that area, that's the big growth right here. Light green, still the 4 to 5% growth. So it's really Rowlett is growing. The projection is pretty big. And North Garland, of course, it's growing. This is the 5-year estimate. So all the Frisco still growing. All the Forney, the southeast side growing. So that is the projection. Okay, let's see, next slide. So this one, next couple more slides, we are going to be talking about these occupations, that people with that skill set, where they live. So I know for the manufacturing and maintenance and those skills, you guys wanted to hire a lot of folks, that we need those folks, where they live. So the darker color is that one showing where those people with the skill, where they live. As you see, a lot of Saxe, Rowlett, the east side of Garland, there's a lot of people living in this area. Kind of mid central Garland, yes, they do have some. You notice, of course, the Forney and the Farmersville and that area. I'm assuming these guys is working on the Greenville. You know, Greenville's have a big L3 operation there. So a lot of folks are living there, maybe Murphy, Wiley. These guys are coming to Garland or they're going to the Greenville. So these guys, if you are doing some kind of job fair, maybe the chance, so if you're looking for the maintenance worker, maybe this area is the place you wanted to do the job fair. So this is more engineering skill, that is architecture and engineering employees. A lot of people living in North, Allen, Plano, Murphy. There's a lot of people in Murphy and in Wiley, of course. And then some folks that northern part of Garland. So this one is office and administrative support employees. Yeah, of course, there's more folks in the North Garland and the Mesquite. There is some in Mesquite, and then the Colony, Allen, Murphy, the Farmersville, of course, and Fate, Forney. There's a lot of people living outer skirt of Metroplex. And this is construction, extraction, so oil related production employees. It's a lot in the central Garland. So I think that a lot of folks in Garland, they're in the construction industry. And of course, Box Spring and the Mesquite, there's a lot of folks living in South Dallas, East Dallas. And that's something, the skill set you may be looking for too. I think that's something, if you're recruiting, that maybe the skill set maybe kind of relate to the manufacturing field. That's the reason I kind of included that. And then production employees, the Dallas County median wage is $32,000. There's a lot of folks in Garland, so that's good. Good thing is a lot of people in Garland have that, you know, the occupation in the production occupation, and hopefully they are working in Garland. This is the transportation and distribution employees. Of course, you see that there's a lot of distribution facility in South Dallas. So when you in the Mesquite, they have a lot of distribution centers. So as you see, there's a lot of folks within that occupation living in the South Dallas east side of Garland. So this one kind of getting into some generation and demographic information. This population that I mentioned earlier, it's 10-mile radius, which is this red ring. It's 1 million people population-wise, and in green is 18 miles, 2.3 million people. And then 25-mile, which is this blue lines, that's a 3.3 million people. A lot of people in that ring, same thing, it's about 85 to 86% of people have a high school graduate, and 40% of folks have a bachelor's degree or higher. That dark red is the population concentration. Again, bigger census block that have a higher population, but it's really a lot of folks in northeast side of Garland. There's a lot of higher population density there. So now we're talking about generation. You know, I feel like I've been here for 20 years and I feel still young, but actually I am, so I'm a Gen X. So always, you know, we were talking about millennials and Gen Zs, and I think I see a lot of faces, my kind of millennials, Gen Z, but now you guys are taking over, start, you know, growing that population in the workforce. Gen X, baby boomer, is less than 30% now. And then it's really adding Gen Z and millennials, when you were adding these in 43%, that is the workforce now. So it's, of course, we knew about it, but, you know, when you're looking at those numbers, it's really eye-opening. That's, I feel. So it's really now, of course, millennials feel like they're younger generation, but really millennials now higher, now they are 40 years old, is they are millennials. So they're really getting in a leadership position and supervising position. So last time I attended the one of the economic development conference, and they were talking about now really millennials, Gen Z is getting that leadership role in the company. So company will change. Definitely that and the rules and the policy will change. That's they were talking about. So I know there's folks in HR, so probably don't really need to talk about it, but there's some bullet point I wanted to kind of point out. I thought it's very interesting. So millennial is between age now 25 and 40. So again, they are well educated. 45% have a bachelor's degree or higher. It's very educated. They're likely job hop for the higher pay or other advantage. So this is really kind of interesting fact that 50% of millennials stay less than 2.8 years at one employer. So like I said, I am trying to hire a couple of positions here too. And then when I'm looking at the resume, you know, maybe 5 years in one place will be good. But now average 50% of millennials only stay less than 3 years. So and that's something we have to kind of start thinking about, you know, they are millennials is like to job hop for the higher pay. And, you know, 60% are open to new job opportunity, which I kind of understand, but those are 50% more than non-millennials. And 50% of millennials say advancement opportunity is very, very important. So now Gen Z is 24 and under. So all the high school graduate now that they are getting into labor force is now everybody is Gen Z. So 12% is now already workforce and of course growing. And they are very, very connected. So the technology is the must. It's not just, it's nice to have. It's not that kind of thing. It's they have to have it. They when they were born, they had a technology. So it's really, for me, it's some of the bullet point was really eye-opening. So this one, I kind of mentioned it earlier when I was talking to occupation. This is the median wage in Dallas County. And if you are maintenance and the median wage is 23.9 annual, so salary will be this about 50,000. This is Dallas County. So if you go to a different county and there is some shifting, but this is our, and Garland, we always go to Garland salary information based on Dallas County. So the reason I'm showing this is, as everybody know, right now, housing market, the real estate market is just crazy right now. So this is a housing market in Garland. If you are owning a house, which is right now average single family home in Garland is about 277,000. If you own a house and the mortgage is 20% down, usually we say, you know, the living cost should be 30%, less than 30% of your income. If you own a house and you are the only single income house, you have to make $63,000. And if you are renting a house in Garland, it's a monthly payment is about $2,000. You have to make $76,000. So I think a lot of times, you know, they have a double income, but, you know, you have to make $76,000 in order for them to kind of live comfortably. Now, so one bedroom apartment, the Garland, again, when you're talking to other folks looking at the other city, Garland housing cost is very affordable compared to other cities. But one bedroom apartment now is costing average monthly rent is $1,000 with a 700 square feet apartment. If you wanted to live by yourself and renting one bedroom apartment, you have to make minimum $43,000. So, so looking at going back to this one, if the, you know, the guy or girl working in the production line, you know, right now Dallas County average wage is 30 and the salary is $32,000. So they cannot kind of afford to live by themselves. Of course, they can have a roommate and all that. But, I'm not saying anything. This is just right now, housing cost is crazy. And that's kind of, your employee is kind of facing. Right now, if you wanted to rent an apartment by yourself and, young folks, and if you are not like illustration, $49,000 for that wage, you cannot afford to live in a 1-bedroom apartment. So I thought that was really interesting fact, an interesting number. Seth,
Ayako, there's somebody who raised their hand.
Yes.
Seth. You can just unmute yourself, Seth, if you'd like to ask your question.
Well, I can come back. Okay, so this is the real estate market and industrial market and the retail market. In Garland, we don't really have a big office market, so I did not include that. But it's just real estate is crazy, as you see. I've been here 20 years. Usually industrial vacancy rate in Garland, 10%. That was kind of average. Now it's 2.2%. Simply, we don't have a space. If you have a place real estate you own, probably it's good for you to sell, but probably you cannot find it. Right now, 2.2% is just crazy low. And I get the email and then looking for a site. I cannot find a site right now. And the retail is the same thing. Right now, usually about 14% average. Now it is only 4.7%. That's the retail vacancy. And the rent wise, I always said industrial market in Garland is $3 and $4 if new building. But now it's $6. It's really double. So again, if you are renting, it's the rent cost is really growing. Even retail, usually it's around $10. Now it's close to $18 in Garland. So this is average. So if you go to newer property, probably higher rent. But right now, market is just crazy now. So, so I'm going to go really quickly, project highlight last 5 years. And this is the new building, I guess, well, not new anymore, but the Regency Crest. We have a 2 building. There's 3 tenants, or maybe 4 by now. So they have a 2 building on the Regency Crest. The Garland Logistics Center, this is 500,000 square feet. It's close to the Daisy Brand and Mappé, the Garland Avenue and the 635 area. I think that's still 100,000 square feet or maybe less than that. It's available, but it's pretty much occupied. Jupiter Miller Business Center, there's a 3 building, total almost 800,000 square feet. This is a corner of Jupiter and Miller, former Raytheon site. And the Lexor, Ecolab, Quest Window, and Apple, they are occupying those 3 buildings. So this is kind of aerial view. This is the Ricky Rocket gas station. This is the corner is this side, Jupiter and Miller corner, and then 3 building. And then behind this, the Cosmax, I think former NutriBiotech took over 3 building, and they are putting operation there. So total of 100+ acres we redeveloped and repurposed. So I think that was a really good project. Shiloh Business Center and a 2 building along Shiloh between Miller and McCree. 2 building, so south building, probably everybody remember 2 years ago when tornado hit, almost the building was complete, but it's the tornado hit, it's totally demolished, but now rebuilt. And then I think both building is fully occupied. And the Marquis Business Center, I think this is the newest building on Marquis between Shiloh and Jupiter. I think 2 building, both of them, it's fully occupied. Baylor's kind of white. It's not just industrial building. I just put the medical building in North Garland, I'm sorry, George Bush area. This one's built probably 3 years ago. It's close to 100,000 square feet and then 3-story buildings. So Draper, this project is not ground break started yet, but this is the Garland Avenue and the Forest Lane area. This is the Chase Tower still there. And so they were trying to get some federal grants. So that's, of course, you're dealing with the federal grant. It takes a long time, but this is really corner. It's a redevelopment project. Total area is about 5 acres, 3-phase project. It's going to be multifamily, going to be added on there, mixed use development. True Velocity. So that's now I'm talking about the, not just the real estate, I'm talking about the project. This is, I think everybody knows True Velocity. They're on the Nicholson Road. They expanded. So they added 116 people, and I think they are doing another expansion pretty soon. So Kraft, of course, they are making Ranchable. They added a bigger parking spot, and then they have some a production line added. So this was expansion for the Lunchable lines. Stream Data Center, which is a data center in the northern part of Garland, George Bush, and a Lookout. So this is the first building. They're in the process doing expansion. Another, they got the really good tenants. So they were adding another 132,000 square feet. So their proposed investment is 100 million for the phase 2. NutriBiotech, of course, now it's a Cosmac. This is the one I mentioned earlier. That's the former Raytheon site. Plastic packaging. I don't know anybody from plastic here today, but they're really always expanding. They added another production line. Quest Window, I mentioned that it's going to be right. I think even before the building was built, they took over, which is a Canadian company. They make those windows, high-rise windows. They added over 300 jobs. I think you heard about the revolving kitchen. They're Shepherd Street. It's really Forest and the Shepherd. It's a commercial kitchen. They have 33 commercial kitchens in there. They did a really good job of renovating there. They have an app. You can order food and then you can pick that up. So now he got the new investors, and they are planning to open 10 other locations instead of all over Texas. And Ecolab, it's one of the companies took over one building on Jupiter Miller. They have this one is for the distribution and warehouse. They have a main building on the off Miller Road. They added 84 people on there. AQS, this is a South Korean company. They came expanded from California. They're Miller and what is the street? It's close to Jupiter, that area. So they added 150 people. They make those microchips. Of course, Micropack Industry, this is on 66, new building. They are expanding, and from Walnut Street to this brand new building. I think Mark is here. I'm not sure if Mark is here, but yep, so it's really exciting. It's now vertical now. Future Foam, this is the newest company. It's a Kingsley, it's on Kingsley Road. It's a former Apex tool building. It's a good building, but it's some challenge for the distribution. So it was vacant for 3 years or so. But new company took over from Dallas, and they're moving to this location, expand their operation. So they're adding 100 jobs. So, and then overall, last 5 years, real estate development, we added over 2 million square feet. Again, we said it's all taken now, 116 million new tax value. So recruitment expansion project, over 350 million investment, and we added over 2,000 jobs. So what's coming next? So you see a lot of orange cone. There is a lot of construction now. This is all about 2019. The Garland Citizen passed up close to $500 million bond project. A lot of them, there's all the numbers here. It's all the street improvement. So mainly I wanted to talk about this kind of southwest portion of Garland. And Shiloh Road improvement from LBJ to all the way to VA Hospital on the Walnut Street. It's gonna be widened, and so it's gonna be 6-lane divided concrete street. Right now it's only 4-lane. It's gonna be 6-lane all the way to past the Walnut Road. Now, of course, TxDOT project, LBJ East improvement, 75 to all the way I-30. It's on the schedule, but still it's gonna be another 2 more years. I know if you were taking 635, it's gonna be really, it's bad right now, but it's gonna be better once it's done. So 2019 bond is, again, Parks and Recreation. We are really doing a lot of improvement on trails, parks upgrade. So $117 million bond package. So they're adding second largest skate park in Garland. It's on Miller Road. I think it's right now under construction. It's going to be very exciting. And then again, $40 million, it's close to 50 million actually in economic development. Our focus is redevelopment, as I mentioned. The Garland Medical District, probably you've heard, VA Hospital purchased the building that took the Baylor Hospital's campus. So they have VA Hospital open, and Belarus Health Park, which is a medical developer, took over 2 buildings in the kind of in front of the VA Hospital. City partner with them. We own the 2 properties for the future medical office development. And also that economic development redevelopment project, we're going to be really focusing on the retail and the multifamily redevelopment project. So either we're going to be purchasing the property and then working with developer to redevelop, or we're going to have just simple partnership with the property owner and do the improvement on the property. So this is kind of new project we're going to be working on. We are working on the old Hypermart site, South Garland Avenue, Kingsley Road. City owned 24 acres. Right now you see the concrete batch plant. We have a contract with the TxDOT to do all the eastern portion of the development improvement. So they are using that site, but once it's over, it's end of 2024, we're going to be redeveloping that site. They're also near industrial area, Garland Road. This is the Garland Road and the 635 Leon, Daisy Brand here, and the Mape is a little bit north. So DART has close to 9 acre here. City on a 3 acre, and then Cinemark have a 3 acre. But city is under contract of the Cinemark property now. So we have a 15 acre property right here. We love to see that working with the master plan and working with the developer to do some exciting project. Stay tuned. Other initiative, this thing that's going to be the last slide. We are doing economic development strategic plan. We are kind of looking into all the workforce analysis and all the program that we have. That's we're going to have evaluate and then see that more opportunity. And a hotel feasibility study, city own a 17 acre on Rose Hill and I-30. So we're gonna be doing an RFQ again for that 17 acre site, hotel anchored mixed use development. We're gonna be marketing pretty soon. And a facade and exterior improvement program, we are trying to finalize that program. Matching grant to assist property owners. It's mainly retail shopping center and also the multifamily. If they wanted to do major improvement, we would love to partner with them. So we're getting a lot of interest now. So soon, hopefully, we can finalize the program. I apologize for technical difficulty, but here is my contact. And so if you have any question, feel free to contact me. And that's all the slide I got.
All right, well, we have some time for questions, and I know we had the hand raised earlier, so I think it was from GeoMet. If you guys still want to ask your questions, or if anybody has any questions, you're welcome to unmute yourself and you can ask those. If we don't have any, then I have a few of my own where we can get started. All right, I'll go ahead and get the Q&A started with a question for you, Ayako.
Okay.
What is the best way to connect a business that wants to expand, or let's say if a business comes through us, through the chamber, what is the best way to communicate them or connect them with you for that expansion or redevelopment or whatever project they have planned?
Oh, well, you can call me, you can email me, or through you guys, that's fine too. Like I said, it's no wrong door. So whatever you have strong relationship, stronger, better relationship with you guys, just talk to you guys first. But again, it's gonna be whatever, what's the really specific need? That's really, we would love to know so that we can really serve better. Sometimes, like I mentioned about economic development effort, maybe you guys have a better answer. And if it's incentive conversation, definitely we can assist that too.
So you talked a little bit about this, some of the challenges that might be coming up, but what do you see as a big challenge? Like if you were to name one big challenge that will be coming up in 2022, what would you see that for Garland?
For Garland itself?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For several things, of course. If you have a manufacturing company, any business actually, any kind of business, workforce, I don't know. I'm trying to find a positive note, a positive information. Right now, it's just tough market. Period. Now, I think in some creative way, probably everybody have to think about it as a community. Maybe, I don't know, workforce is always the key issue. How city or, chamber and how as a community can help each other is always the key, I think. Now, for me, recruitment standpoint, definitely we don't have a space. Manufacturing company, I see a lot of project, they are looking for 1 million square feet and a really big space because supply chain issue. Everybody know, those automakers, they cannot find the parts and all that. Before, when I received some kind of project lead, 200,000 square feet, 350,000 square feet. Now they're looking for 1 million square feet, 2 million square feet. They're looking for battery plant. They're looking for all kind of different kind of auto related manufacturing industry looking for, starting off operation here in Garland. Simply, we don't have that space. So that is a challenge. That's the reason redevelopment is really key for us.
We have Linda with her hand up.
Yes, I work for Micropack Industries.
Oh, hi, yes.
Hi, so
how are you?
I'm good. Good presentation, good content, good information. I think Mark is out of town today, but I wanted to ask a couple of questions.
Sure.
So what does Garland offer to new companies moving into the area? Is our tax base more attractive than say Collin County or some of the neighboring cities?
Right, so always we compete, right? So Garland Advantage is definitely our base of industry already here. as you see, they like to be nearby. It's, of course, there's a lot of things. Supply chain is probably already established. Workforce is established. That is the reason. Now we are looking at, I kind of mentioned in Dallas County average wage each occupation. When you're looking at the Collin County and, you know, definitely higher. Now, that is, you know, affordability, you know, that's reaching out to those good skilled workforce, definitely Garland advantage, I believe. Now, you guys and everybody looking for more people with skills, more people with good attitude. Those are something we definitely proactively promote, and we have to do something about it in order for us to keep our competitiveness. I truly believe that. It's really, incentive is one small component, but end of the day, I think incentive is very, very small. And then also, you know, how we can help that process. Sometimes going through a permitting process is really challenging. I know Mark is really connected, so I think it's a lot of things that helps. But again, as you know, the city development service team, they are very supportive, and they understand what your needs are. That's another advantage for Garland. I hope I answered your question.
Oh, yes.
Hey, okay, this is Jamie. Just real quick, I did a look at tax rates for various municipalities in the area back in the spring. So my numbers are going to be outdated a little bit, because if anybody's done a bond issue or done any kind of increase in their taxes since then. But all three, both Garland, Saxony, and Rowlett, were pretty much in the middle of the pack in terms of total all-in tax rate. If you take in the cities and the school district by itself, I think there's maybe Highland Park and maybe Addison might be lower. They're very high property rich cities, districts, but the Garland district will probably be about the third, and your school taxes are the predominant, you know, is your biggest tax amount. So, and you know, I've been interested in keeping up with that as we change, because for years, one of the best things Garland had to offer was its tax rate. We don't have an airport, you know, we don't have Ross Perot out here pushing our land. So being on this side of the Metroplex has always been important. I felt like to stay competitive with respect to taxes, workforce, availability of land, et cetera.
Yep.
Does anybody else have any other questions? We still have about 5 more minutes before we move back to the main room and finish out today's event. If you have any questions, again, go ahead and unmute yourself and can ask those to Ayako.
Hi, this is Dr. Andrea Graham. I'm with Texas A&M University of Commerce. And I wanted to ask what efforts are, and I know there are, because you know you have the community college there, you have your local colleges, but with the ISDs, what concerted or collaborative efforts with the city is the ISD or the city and the ISD collaborating or engaging in to build up skills in the workforce going forward to meet some of the demands of jobs and all that?
Yep. Probably that's something, you know, Andrea and Jamie, you guys can talk about it for the all the workforce and all the GISD collaboration with the, you know, industries.
Yeah, there's you know, there's a lot of collaboration that goes on. Within the school district, you have everything from the junior achievement things that go on to you know, our career technology center, the way the local industry has pitched in to help out with kids in their training. Obviously the Richland College, the Dallas College over there is awesome and it continues to train people for the workforce. the CTC by itself, with respect to helping prepare kids with certifications and about 70 different skill sets that exist, so the kids get out of high school both college, career, or military ready. And so in addition to that, and kind of related, there's an effort going on right now to connect the city council, the city councils, municipalities, et cetera, with the school district for continuing to have a kind of cooperative, if you will, so that the three entities get together and talk about things that are needed and ways to address needs within the three communities as well as the school district. So, I think there's lots of opportunities still that exist, but the school district, as you know, we're always interested in anything that helps give a kid a path to whatever they determine is their success.
And I will say from the Garland Chamber side, we have different programs. One of them specifically is FAME. So FAME is to bring up the next AMTs, those advanced maintenance technicians that manufacturing companies need. So we've paired up with the GRCTC to really bring in these companies that are looking for those. It's sort of like an apprentice program in a way, but they also get to go to school while working. So we have that program where those that might not want to go into college to do this other side and still get their certification, or they're going to college and getting the certification at the same time, and then they just have to finish out their bachelor degree, but at least they've already started working and they already have a reputation within the company that they chose or where they were chosen. So this year was the first year, or last year was the first cohort, and they're about to graduate in the coming years, and that's really exciting to have that pipeline going. And also, we do some education side to those that are already working with our Leadership Academy. So we do a 4-week, it's like once a month, one day, and then they come and get the certification so that they can become supervisors. And they have that certification and they are able to move up within the company. So there's things where we want to partner with Dallas College, and we've partnered with the GRCTC, the Career Technical Center, to really create that pipeline.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's see. I think we'll be moving out in a little bit. But Ayako, thank you so much for our presentation today.
I apologize. I don't know what happened.
I think you pivoted.
You know, that was
right.
Yeah.
Great
Talk about
recovery,
the pivot.
Ayako, great recovery.
Great recovery, great pivot.
Oh,
It's a great presentation.
oh, thank you.
Thank you for that great presentation, Ayako. Thank you to our supporting sponsors, Veritex Community Bank, and Dana and Jamie that are here today.
All right, I wanted to, thank everybody for being here. We shared a lot of information with you today, and we appreciate your attendance. Look for more involvement from the DCMA as we expand our programs in 2022. Programs like Dallas Fame to address our manufacturers' needs, our Human Resources Committee, the DCMA Leadership Academy programs 1.0 and 2.0, and some other programs are in the works. All these are developed with your needs in mind to make your business life better and to support the economic growth of our industry and our community. Please remember to complete the DCMA survey so we can better serve you in future events. I'd like to thank our title sponsor today, Sean Cass with Texas Security Bank, and our supporting sponsors, Carr, Riggs & Ingram, Veritex Community Bank, and Label Solutions. I also like to thank our speakers with OCCUMED Plus, MKim Legal, and the City of Garland Economic Development Department for their time and their valuable contributions to the DCMA community in this event. And lastly, as a reminder, Rick will be reaching out to you to find out how you want your your swag bag delivered. And on this next meeting, we can compare swag with each other like we did this morning. Thanks again, everybody, and have a great afternoon and a great weekend.